Running up the stairs after turning off the lights. Okay, be honest. Have you ever turned off the lights downstairs and suddenly it feels like you're in a horror movie? Like the second that switch clicks, some invisible monster wakes up and your only mission is to sprint up those stairs like your life depends on it? Yeah, we've all been there. When we were kids, this was basically a survival routine. You're downstairs, maybe grabbing a snack or your school bag, and everything feels fine because the lights are on. But the moment you flick that switch, boom, your brain goes into panic mode. Suddenly, that dark hallway isn't just a hallway, it's a tunnel of doom. The shadows? Clearly hiding something. The creak of the floorboards? Obviously footsteps. And your only defense? Run. Run as fast as your little legs can carry you up those stairs, probably skipping the last 3 steps because, let's be real, those last few are always the most dangerous in our imagination. And don't even get me started on basements. Basements are the final boss level of this situation. If you had to go down there for anything, laundry, grabbing something for your parents, pure curiosity, you were basically entering a war zone. Because coming back up, oh man, that light switch at the bottom of the stairs was like the start button of your personal escape room challenge. Click, lights out, and suddenly you're Usain Bolt. But here's the funny thing. This weird urge to run is not just kid logic. It actually makes sense, thanks to how our brains are wired. See, humans have what's called a fight or flight response. It's this automatic system that kicks in when our brain thinks we're in danger. Back in caveman times, this was super useful. You hear a rustle in the bushes, your brain doesn't wait to figure out if it's a lion or just the wind. It assumes the worst so you can survive. Fast forward to now, and your brain still uses that same system. But instead of lions, it's, well, your dark staircase. Your logical adult brain knows there's nothing down there, but the older, survival-focused part of your brain, it doesn't care. It sees darkness, hears creaks, and fills in the blanks with every horror movie you've ever watched. Especially as kids, our imaginations are wild. We spend years reading stories about monsters under the bed, ghosts in closets, creatures lurking in the shadows. So when the lights go off, your brain takes those stories and runs with them. And so do your feet. It's actually kind of cool when you think about it. Your brain is just trying to keep you safe, even if it's being a little dramatic. And guess what? It's not just a kid thing. Adults do this too, seriously. You could be 30 years old, living alone in your totally safe, locked-up house, and still, when you turn off the downstairs lights at night, a tiny voice in your head goes, "Better run, just in case." You might laugh at yourself afterward, but for those few seconds, full panic mode. Psychologists even have a term for this exaggerated response to darkness, nyctophobia, or fear of the dark. It's super common in kids, but plenty of adults have mild versions too. Not because they literally believe in monsters, but because darkness equals unknown equals possible danger, and our brains hate unknowns. There have even been studies showing that our other senses get heightened in the dark, which makes every little creak, thud, or weird house noise seem 10 times scarier. Your imagination fills in the blanks with the worst possible scenario because, again, evolution decided it's better to be paranoid and alive than chill and eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. So yeah, running up the stairs after turning off the lights, totally normal. You weren't weird, you weren't weak, you were basically just following your brain's ancient survival manual, even if the only real danger was tripping over your own socks. But hey, be honest, do you still do it sometimes? Maybe not a full-on sprint like when you were 8, but a quick, slightly faster than normal walk, maybe a little glance over your shoulder, or do you stand there acting brave, but secretly your heart's racing just a bit?
Avoiding stepping on cracks. You know that weird little game we all played as kids? walking down the sidewalk, eyes glued to the ground, carefully stepping only on the smooth parts, avoiding every single crack like your life depended on it? Step on a crack, break your mother's back. Remember that? It sounds ridiculous now, but back then, it felt like the ultimate test of skill. And maybe, just maybe, you were protecting your mom with your super precise foot placement. It's funny how universal that was. You could be in any country, any neighborhood, any school, and odds are some kid was playing that game, hyper-focused, leaping over cracks like it was an Olympic event. And it wasn't just sidewalks either. Tiles on the floor, bricks on the playground, even the lines on the basketball court. Suddenly, they became this invisible obstacle course. The cracks were lava, or dangerous, or cursed. The rules didn't have to make sense. They just existed. And breaking them? No thanks. But why were we so obsessed with this? Well, part of it is just classic childhood imagination. Kids love turning the world around them into games. A boring sidewalk? Nah, that's a puzzle now. Suddenly walking isn't just walking, it's a mission. And the consequences, in your head, feel huge. Step on a crack, who knows what might happen? It's drama, it's excitement, it's control over your little environment. And there's actually a psychological reason behind that too. As kids, there's so much we can't control. Grown-ups make the rules, school has structure, bedtimes exist, but the cracks on the ground, that's your space. That's your decision. You get to choose where your feet land. You set the challenge. You control the outcome. It feels empowering, even if it's just silly sidewalk gymnastics. Plus, there's the superstition factor. That old rhyme, step on a crack, break your mother's back, sounds dark when you really think about it, but as kids, it's less about actual fear and more about playful superstition. It's the same energy as tossing a coin into a fountain for luck or avoiding walking under ladders. It adds a little magic and mystery to an otherwise ordinary moment. Even if you didn't believe the rhyme, didn't it still feel wrong to step on a crack? Like, why risk it? Better safe than sorry, right? And here's where it gets even more interesting. Avoiding cracks isn't just some random kid quirk. There's a real psychological term connected to this kind of behavior: magical thinking. It's that belief, especially common in childhood, that your actions can influence unrelated events. You avoid cracks, and somehow you're protecting your mom. You make a wish when the clock hits 11:11, and maybe it'll come true. It's our young brains trying to make sense of the world, adding rules, patterns, and a little sprinkle of magic to life. But want to know something wild? Magical thinking isn't exclusive to kids. Loads of adults do it too, just in more subtle ways. Ever avoided walking under a ladder? Or knocked on wood after saying something risky? That's the same instinct, trying to control the uncontrollable even when logic says it doesn't make sense. It's weirdly comforting. And let's be real, some of you still avoid sidewalk cracks, don't you? Maybe not consciously, maybe not because of a rhyme, but if you're walking down the street and there's a huge uneven crack, your brain does that little sidestep automatically. Old habits die hard, especially the silly, harmless ones. So hey, no shame if your inner child still wins sometimes. If you find yourself zigzagging down the sidewalk or hopping over floor tiles like you're in a video game, own it. It's a tiny bit of nostalgia, a reminder of when the world was simple and magical, and the ground itself held secret rules only you understood. All right, be honest. Did you play the step on a crack game as a kid? Were you hardcore about it? Or did you break the rules on purpose just to feel rebellious? Or maybe, you still secretly avoid cracks when no one's looking. Let me know in the comments. And if you do still play, hey, maybe you're just keeping your mom safe after all.
Believing the floor was lava. All right, let's be real. There was no better way to spice up a boring afternoon as a kid than turning your entire house into a deadly obstacle course with one simple rule. The floor is lava. You remember that, right? One minute you're chilling on the couch. The next, bam, the floor is molten, bubbling lava. And your only hope for survival is hopping from furniture to furniture like some kind of miniature action hero. And suddenly, your living room isn't just a living room, it's an active volcano zone. And you're Indiana Jones, but shorter and probably wearing pajamas. It didn't matter how small the space was. Bedroom, living room, even your grandma's house where the furniture was strictly do not touch. When someone yelled, "The floor is lava," it was game on. Pillows became life rafts, couch cushions were your safe zones. Even the armrest of a chair you weren't supposed to climb on suddenly became the last solid ground in a sea of doom. And we took that seriously. I mean, the drama was real. You'd stretch, leap, contort your body like a professional gymnast, all to avoid that terrifying imaginary lava. And the second someone slipped and accidentally touched the floor, total devastation. You'd hear dramatic screams, maybe some fake slow motion acting, and of course, the overly dramatic "no!" Because obviously, you didn't just trip, you were consumed by molten rock. The stakes couldn't be higher. But looking back, isn't it kind of wild how universal that game was? You could be in a completely different school, city, country even, and still say the floor is lava and every kid in the room immediately got it. No instructions, no explanation needed. It's like we were all born with some secret manual for turning ordinary floors into life-threatening, lava-covered landscapes. So where does that even come from? Well, turns out it's not just random kid nonsense. There's real psychology behind it. See, when you're a kid, your brain is basically this unstoppable creativity machine. Everything's a potential story, a mission, a challenge. And imaginative play, like turning the floor into lava, isn't just fun. It's developmental gold. Psychologists say games like that help with problem solving, motor skills, and spatial awareness. Basically, every time you leapt from one cushion to another, narrowly avoiding imaginary molten death, you were secretly sharpening your balance, your quick thinking, and your coordination. Who knew surviving fake lava was preparing you for adulthood? And let's be honest, part of the magic was the power it gave us. As kids, adults made all the rules. Don't jump on the furniture. Don't climb that. Be careful in the house. But when the floor was lava, suddenly we made the rules. We controlled the danger. We decided how to survive. And for a few minutes, even the strictest living room became our personal adventure zone. Plus, can we talk about how creative we got? It wasn't always lava. Sometimes it was shark-infested water. Sometimes it was quicksand. Sometimes, for the truly dramatic among us, it was a floor full of poisonous spikes or alien goo. The possibilities? Endless. All powered by that wild, boundless kid imagination. And the best part? Most of us still carry a little bit of that with us. Maybe you don't jump across couches anymore, or maybe you do, no judgment. But do you ever walk down the street and avoid stepping on cracks? Or jump over a puddle like it's more dangerous than it actually is? That little piece of your brain that turns ordinary spaces into mini adventures? It never really left. Actually, fun fact, adults have a version to this too. It's called environmental play. And yeah, it sounds all sciencey, but basically, it's that urge to interact with your surroundings in fun, sometimes silly ways. Like climbing rocks at the beach when you could just walk around them, or hopping over sidewalk lines, even though you're fully grown and wearing business clothes. It's the same playful instinct, just, hopefully with fewer bruised knees. So here's the real question. How hardcore were you when it came to the floor is lava? Were you the careful, strategic type, plotting every jump? Or were you the chaotic daredevil, flinging yourself across the room like a stunt double? And, to be honest, have you ever walked into a furniture store as an adult, seen all those perfectly placed chairs and couches, and thought, I could totally make it across without touching the floor? Yeah, same. All right, your turn. Tell me in the comments, did you play the floor as lava? And do you still kind of want to? No shame here. I say next time you get the urge, go for it. Just maybe warn your furniture first.
Covering yourself entirely with blankets to feel safe from monsters. Okay, let's set the scene. It's bedtime, the lights are off, the house is quiet, too quiet. Suddenly, every creak, every little shadow in your room, suspicious. Your closet, definitely hiding something. The gap under your bed, basically a portal to the monster dimension. And what's your number one foolproof, never fails defense? That's right, your blanket. Doesn't matter how thin it was, doesn't matter that it had cartoon characters on it, that thing was your personal fourth field. You pull it over your head, tuck in your toes, and boom, instant safety. Monsters, ghosts, creepy crawlies, nope, it can't get you, not under the blanket. That blanket was magic. And you know the rule, everything had to be covered. Even 1 foot sticking out, game over. Everyone knew monsters couldn't get you through the blanket, but a stray toe, that was basically an invitation. It's like you were saying, hey, creepy underbed creature, snacks ready. So, naturally, we wrapped ourselves up like human burritos, sweating buckets in the middle of summer, all in the name of safety. But why do so many kids instinctively do that? Why does throwing a blanket over your head instantly make the fear dial down? Well, turns out there's actually some real science behind that little survival strategy. It all comes down to how our brains process fear and how a simple piece of fabric can trick our senses into feeling safe. See, when you're lying there in bed, your brain starts playing games with you. It's dark, you can't see clearly, and suddenly that pile of clothes in the corner? Monster. That shadow on the wall? Ghost. Your imagination kicks into overdrive, and the more you stare into the dark, the scarier it feels. But the moment you pull that blanket over your head, it blocks out the unknown. You can't see the creepy shadows. You can't hear the weird sounds as much. It creates this little bubble, a space where you're in control. Psychologists call it creating a safe zone. It's your brain's way of reducing sensory input, and with less to process, the fear calms down. Pretty clever, honestly. And don't underestimate the power of ritual. Covering yourself with a blanket becomes this comforting, familiar action. Your brain remembers, every time I do this, I feel better. So even if it's 100% imaginary, that feeling of safety is real. It's like how adults lock the doors twice when they're anxious or double-check the stove before leaving the house. It's not always logical, but it soothes the brain. There was even a term for this kind of behavior. It's called self-soothing, and it's actually super important for emotional development. For kids, especially at night when the world feels a little too big and scary, finding ways to self-soothe, like hiding under a blanket, is basically training wheels for handling anxiety later in life. Who knew your blanket burrito technique was building life skills? And let's be honest, even adults kinda do a version of this. Have you ever been home alone, heard a weird noise, and suddenly pulled the blanket up a little tighter? Yeah, that instinct never fully leaves. Or those nights when you feel extra jumpy and you sleep with the blanket fully covering your shoulders, even when it's hot? Same thing. We may not believe in the boogeyman anymore, but those old childhood defenses, they stick around. The funny thing is, some experts believe this whole fear of the dark blanket defense situation is left over from our ancestors. Back in the day, I'm talking caveman days, nighttime was dangerous. Predators, unknown threats. Hiding made sense. Staying still, keeping covered, those were survival instincts. Fast forward to today, the saber-toothed tigers are gone, but the hide under the blanket strategy, still going strong. So hey, next time you find yourself completely cocooned under the covers, sweating but feeling oddly safe, just know you're tapping into some ancient survival wisdom, and your 6-year-old self would be proud. All right, time for the truth. Were you a blanket over-the-head sleeper? Did you have strict no feet exposed rules? Or were you that brave or reckless kid who left an arm dangling off the bed, totally unfazed? Drop your confessions in the comments. And hey, if your blanket's within reach right now, maybe keep it close, just in case.
Thinking swallowing a seed would make a tree grow in your stomach. All right, real talk. Who else lived in absolute fear after accidentally swallowing a fruit seed as a kid? You'd be sitting there, happily munching on a watermelon or an orange, minding your own business. And suddenly, gulp, oh no, you swallowed a seed. Immediate panic. Your life flashes before your eyes. You start picturing a full-blown tree sprouting out of your belly button. It was pure childhood terror. And it didn't even matter how tiny the seed was. Watermelon, apple, orange, grape, in your kid brain, they all had the same horrifying potential, a forest growing inside you. I mean, imagine going to school and suddenly, bam, leaves popping out of your shirt, roots curling out of your sleeves, total disaster. Where did that idea even come from? Well, turns out a lot of it came straight from other kids. Playground myths are powerful, man. One kid hears their older cousin say, "Careful, swallow that, and a tree will grow in your stomach." And suddenly it spreads like wildfire. Before you know it, it's accepted as scientific fact among 7-year-olds everywhere. But let's break this down. Scientifically speaking, is that even remotely possible? Absolutely not. Your stomach is basically the least tree-friendly environment on the planet. It's full of acid designed to break down food, not cultivate a secret garden. Seeds don't stand a chance in there. They get digested along with everything else. No soil, no sunlight, no tree. But here's the fun part. Even as adults, that little myth sticks with us. You eat a watermelon now, and somewhere in the back of your brain, you might still hesitate when you get to the seeds. Admit it. Even though you know it's impossible, there's a tiny flicker of that old childhood panic whispering, "What if?" And honestly, it's kind of sweet how seriously we took those little myths as kids. It shows just how wild and imaginative our young minds were. To a kid, the body is still a bit of a mystery, so the idea that a tiny seed could set up shop in your belly and grow? Totally believable. In fact, it makes perfect sense if your understanding of biology is based entirely on cartoons and storybooks. There's even a psychology term for this. It's called literal interpretation, and it's super common in young kids. Their brains process language and information exactly as it's said, without all the grown-up nuance. So when someone jokingly says, "Don't swallow that seed or a tree will grow in your tummy," kids don't hear the joke. They hear a horrifying botanical fact. And you know what? This little myth isn't even new. Versions of this idea have been floating around for generations. There are even old folk tales from different countries warning kids not to swallow seeds for fear of plants growing inside them. It's like this universal parenting trick to get kids to chew their food properly, or maybe to avoid an emergency room visit from a panicked seed-swallowing toddler. But the cool thing is, it kind of sparked curiosity, didn't it? How many of us, after hearing that, became weirdly interested in how plants actually grow? You start thinking about soil, roots, water, sunshine. You might even start planting seeds in cups of dirt just to see what happens. All because, for one terrifying afternoon, you thought you might personally turn into a walking tree. And honestly, isn't that better than the truth? Reality is boring sometimes, but childhood? Ooh! Your body could be a tree farm, your belly could be a greenhouse, your imagination completely unhinged. And that's the magic of it. So, confession time. Did you ever swallow a seed and completely lose it, convinced a plant was sprouting inside you?
Or did you bravely chew through your watermelon like a rebel, daring the botanical consequences? Tell me your seed-swallowing survival stories in the comments. And hey, next time someone offers you a slice of fruit, maybe, just maybe, chew carefully.
Spinning around until you were dizzy for fun. You know what's wild when you think about it? As kids, we used to voluntarily spin around in circles until the entire world looked like a glitchy video game, and we called that fun. I mean, just picture it. You're standing there on the playground, perfectly fine, no one's bothering you, your head is clear, and your brilliant little child brain goes, "Hey, what if I completely destroy my sense of balance right now?" And then, boom, you start twirling like a tornado with zero regard for consequences. And it wasn't just a casual little spin, was it? Oh no, it had to be as fast as humanly possible. Arms stretched out, head tilted back, eyes wide open, pure chaos. You'd whip around like a top until the grass, the sky, your friends all merged into one dizzy, swirling mess. Then, the best part, trying to walk after. You're stumbling around like a cartoon character, legs going in directions your brain definitely didn't authorize, and you're laughing so hard you can barely stand. But here's the funny thing. As kids, we thought that was the peak of entertainment. It was like our own personal amusement ride, no tickets required. You didn't need fancy toys or expensive games, nope. Just you, an open space, and your inner daredevil whispering, "Let's ruin our inner ear real quick." And the dizziness, that woozy, spinning, falling over sensation, we loved it. We didn't even know what vertigo was, but we were out there practically giving ourselves mini science experiments on how it feels to completely lose control of your balance system. I mean, now, as an adult, you get dizzy for even half a second, and it's full panic mode. Oh no, am I sick? Is this a medical emergency? Should I sit down? Should I Google this? But back then, total chaos. Loved it. So why did we do this? Well, turns out there's actually a bit of science behind that ridiculous childhood behavior. Spinning messes with the fluid inside your inner ear, specifically in these little structures called semicircular canals. They're basically your body's built-in gyroscopes that tell your brain where you are in space. When you spin, that fluid keeps moving even after you stop, and your brain's like, "Wait, are we still spinning? What's happening?" That's why everything feels like it's twirling even when your feet are firmly planted. But here's what's even cooler. Little kids are way more tolerant of that sensation than adults. Their brains are still learning how to process balance and motion, so the confusion feels exciting, not terrifying. That's why you could spin for what felt like hours as a kid and bounce right back up. But now, you stand up too fast and suddenly you're seeing stars. And let's be real, spinning around wasn't just about the dizziness. It was about pushing limits, testing your body, finding out what happens when you mess with the rules of gravity for a second. It was low-stakes risk-taking. You'd get dizzy, maybe fall, maybe giggle uncontrollably on the grass, but you learned something every time. Even if what you learned was mostly, "Yeah, the earth feels weird when your brain's all scrambled." Plus, let's not forget the social side of it. Spinning competitions were a real thing. Who could spin the fastest, the longest? Who could stay standing afterward without collapsing like a newborn giraffe? Playground bragging rights were on the line. And sometimes, let's admit it, you just wanted to show off your unshakable dizziness, even if deep down, your stomach was flipping like a washing machine. And honestly, this whole spinning for fun phase was like training for adulthood, only we didn't realize it at the time. Because nowadays, you get that dizzy spinning sensation without the fun part. You stand up too fast, dizzy. You roll over in bed too fast, dizzy. You don't hydrate enough, dizzy. Childhood, you chose the dizziness. Adulthood, it chooses you. But hey, Maybe that's why we did it so much as kids. Somewhere deep in our little kid instincts, we knew adulthood was coming with all its serious, sit still, be responsible rules. So for a few golden years, we embraced the chaos. We spun ourselves silly, fell over laughing, and learned the world feels totally different when you flip your own perspective, even if that perspective was temporarily sideways. So, confession time. Were you the type to spin till you dropped, giggling uncontrollably? Or were you the cautious one on the sidelines, watching your friends spiral into oblivion thinking, yeah, that's not for me? Either way, I bet even now there's a tiny part of you that misses that feeling, that reckless, goofy, head-spinning, gravity-defying childhood chaos. All right, who's getting dizzy just thinking about it?
Trying to dig a hole to China. Okay, let's be honest for a second. At some point in your childhood, you grabbed a shovel, a plastic spoon, or maybe even your bare hands, and you tried to dig a hole straight to China, right? And it wasn't just a passing thought. You were fully committed. In your little kid brain, this was a perfectly reasonable plan. You dig deep enough, you pop out the other side of the world, you say hello to some new people, maybe grab a snack, simple international travel. Easy. But what's hilarious is how confident we were about it. You'd start digging in the backyard, at the playground, maybe even at the beach if you had big ambitions. And every scoop of dirt you tossed aside, you were convinced you were getting closer. You could almost picture it. One moment, dirt and roots. The next, boom, fireworks, noodles, and pandas. Welcome to China. And the best part, we didn't question the logistics, not even for a second. Never mind the fact that the Earth is literally over 12,000 kilometers thick. Or that if you somehow could tunnel through, you'd run into magma, molten rock, and a whole lot of science that does not support backyard intercontinental shortcuts. Nope. In your kid brain, you were one sturdy plastic shovel away from a global adventure. And let's not forget, it wasn't even always China. Some kids thought they'd end up in Australia. Others were aiming for the other side of the world, wherever that might be. The details didn't matter. What mattered was the mission. Dig deep enough, and something magical would happen. Here's the thing, though. This weird little habit actually shows just how wildly creative and curious we were as kids. We didn't have Google Earth. We weren't worried about tectonic plates or the structure of the Earth's core, but we were fascinated by the idea that the world was bigger than our backyard. And somehow, that pile of dirt, that was your gateway to it. And if we're getting technical, here's a fun little science tidbit. If you actually tried to dig straight through the Earth for most places in North America, you'd end up in the Indian Ocean, not China. Sorry to crush the dream. There are even websites now where you can type in your location and find your actual antipode. That's the fancy term for the point directly opposite you on the globe. Spoiler alert, it's usually ocean. So, unless you bought a snorkel with your shovel, your plan had some flaws. But that never stopped us, did it? We dig, and short, maybe you only got a few inches down before you hit rocks or roots, or your mom came outside yelling, "What are you doing to my garden?" But in your head, you were practically halfway there. And it wasn't just about the digging. It was the imagination behind it. The idea that beneath your feet, this entire mysterious world existed. That you could create a portal, a shortcut, a secret passage to somewhere totally new. It was your first brush with geography, engineering, and pure, ridiculous optimism all wrapped into one muddy afternoon. Think about it. As adults, we love traveling, exploring, experiencing new cultures. As kids, we tried to get there with a garden trowel and a whole lot of determination. That's kind of beautiful, actually. And admit it, even now when you see a freshly dug hole at the beach or some kid in the backyard with a plastic shovel, there's a tiny part of you that remembers. That spark of maybe, just maybe. And yeah, we know better now. We know the Earth's crust is solid, the mantle is molten rock, the core is basically a giant ball of liquid metal. It's scientifically impossible. But that ridiculous belief, that hopeful, determined, totally illogical confidence, that's pure childhood magic right there. Plus, you gotta give us credit. Digging a hole isn't easy. You break a sweat, you get dirty. You're battling rocks, bugs, roots. It was practically your first construction job. You learn hard work, patience, and maybe a little disappointment when you realized the only thing you were uncovering was more dirt. But hey, it built character. And let's be real, there's still something satisfying about digging. Maybe that's why adults garden. It's basically the grown-up, socially acceptable version of trying to dig the china, with fewer delusions and hopefully better tools. So tell me, how deep did your hole get? A couple inches? Knee deep? Did you recruit friends to help? And more importantly, how long did you genuinely believe you were gonna pop out the other side of the planet? No shame here. We all had that moment. Little dirt-covered optimists ready to conquer the world, one shovelful at a time.
Close the fridge slowly to try and catch the light turning off. All right, let's admit it. The fridge light mystery was basically one of the earliest unsolved science experiments of childhood. You remember, right? You'd open the fridge, boom, lights on. But then you'd close the door slowly, eyes narrowed, heart racing, trying to crack the code. Does the light stay on when the door is closed? It was the question, NASA-level curiosity. And trust me, for a 6-year-old, that was basically quantum physics. And the dedication we had? Next level. You'd crouch down, eyes glued to that tiny crack of light where the fridge door met the frame. You'd inch it closed, millimeter by millimeter, head tilted sideways, squinting like some tiny detective ready to expose the greatest appliance conspiracy of our time. But of course, the light would vanish just before you could really see what happened. And your brain? Instantly suspicious. I knew it. Something's going on in there. Was it little fridge elves? Was there a secret dimension behind the milk carton? Why did the light need to go off at all? The possibilities were endless. And you know what? As kids, we didn't need logical explanations. We were fueled by pure, unfiltered curiosity. The fridge wasn't just where snacks lived, it was a mystery box. And trying to catch the fridge light staying on, that felt like cracking the universe's code. Forget homework, forget rules. This was the real intellectual challenge of our time. But here's the best part. Even though this whole thing was so simple, it actually taught us something important about how the world works. That little fridge light mystery, it was basically your first accidental science lesson. You were testing hypotheses, observing patterns, conducting experiments, all with sticky fingers and leftover sandwich crumbs nearby. And honestly, you gotta love how our brains worked back then. You didn't need a lab coat, you didn't need fancy equipment. All you needed was a fridge, some curiosity, and the stubborn belief that you could outsmart the system. That you could finally be the one kid who figured out what happened inside the fridge when the door shut. Of course, now as adults, we know the answer. There's a little switch on the inside of the fridge frame. When the door closes, it presses that switch, cutting the power to the light. Simple. No magic, no fridge elves, no alternate dimension full of glowing yogurt containers. Just basic mechanics. But let's be real. Doesn't that feel a little disappointing? I mean, the adult explanation makes sense, sure, but it also takes away the wonder a bit, doesn't it? As kids, we wanted to believe the fridge was hiding something, that it was more than just shelves and leftovers, that behind those plastic drawers, a whole secret world lit up when no one was looking. And can we talk about how universal this was? I don't care where you grew up, what your family was like, every kid has done the fridge light experiment at some point. It's like an unspoken rite of passage. You're not truly a kid until you've squatted in front of the fridge, door halfway closed, eyes wide, desperately trying to prove or disprove the greatest household mystery of our time. It's kind of beautiful when you think about it. That moment, that tiny act of curiosity, it connects all of us. No instructions needed. No adults told us to wonder about the fridge light. We just did. That natural curiosity, that's pure childhood right there. And hey, some of us even took it to the next level. I knew a kid, maybe you did too, who tried to trick the fridge. They'd close the door with their hand inside, finger resting against the light switch, trying to hold it down and see if the light stayed on. Dangerous? Maybe. Genius? Absolutely. And what about you? Did you ever try to wedge something between the door and the fridge so it couldn't close fully, just enough to spy on the light? Or were you the one banging the door shut, too impatient to care, heading straight for your juice box? Either way, deep down, you wondered. You couldn't help it. That fridge light moment reminds me we lose that sense of curiosity sometimes as adults. We get so caught up in the routine, the bills, the work, we forget to ask silly questions like, hey, what happens when the fridge door shuts? But as kids, man, the world was full of little mysteries like that, and we were determined to solve them, one goofy experiment at a time. So next time you open the fridge, whether it's for a snack, a late-night drink, or just to stare blankly into the abyss because adulthood is exhausting, take a second. Remember little you, crouched down, full of wonder, trying to catch the light in the act. And hey, maybe, just maybe, the magic never really left.
Talking to your stuffed animals like they were alive. Okay, let's get brutally honest for a sec. Your stuffed animals. Yeah, you definitely talk to them like they were fully alive. And not just a quick good night or a pat on the head. I'm talking full-blown conversations, life updates, emotional heart-to-hearts, dramatic arguments over who gets to sleep next to you. They weren't toys. They were your ride-or-die crew. And the funny part is, you didn't even question it. In your mind, those plushies, they had personalities. They had feelings. That scruffy teddy bear, probably the wise, protective one. The floppy bunny with one ear kind of hanging weird, total goofball energy. That tiny, slightly creepy doll your aunt gave you, definitely suspicious, but you kept an eye on them. And of course, bedtime wasn't just about sleeping, it was a nightly social gathering. You'd tuck everyone in, maybe rearrange the pillows like some plushy VIP seating arrangement, and then the chats would start. Maybe you'd tell Mr. Bear how your day went. Maybe you'd apologize to the stuffed cat because you accidentally knocked them off the bed earlier. Maybe, just maybe, you'd whisper your biggest secrets to that faded old stuffed dog because, hey, they'd never tell. And admit it, you trusted them. Way more than your siblings, way more than those shifty adults walking around pretending to have life all figured out. Your stuffed animals, they had your back. Always. It's kind of wild when you think about it, how easily kids blend reality with imagination. As adults, we live in this world of logic, bills, schedules, but as kids, you could hold a stuffed elephant and genuinely believe they were listening, that they understood you. And honestly, that belief, it made life a whole lot less lonely. And you know what? Psychologists actually say this whole stuffed animal talking habit is totally normal, even healthy. It's called imaginative play. Basically, it helps kids process emotions, develop empathy, and build social skills, all by chatting with a fluff-filled giraffe. So next time someone teases you about your childhood plushy council meetings, just hit them with, "It was emotional development, actually." Also, can we talk about the loyalty we had to our stuffed animals? Like, they weren't just part of the squad. They were family.
You couldn't leave them behind on road trips. If you accidentally forgot your favorite one at Grandma's, full meltdown, the car turned round, the vacation paused, rescue mission activated. And bedtime? You had a strict system. Some stuffed animals had to sleep on the left side, some on the right. Maybe the small ones got tucked under the blanket. The big ones stood guard at the foot of the bed, clearly on monster patrol duty. It was basically your first experience managing a team, except this team was made of polyester and button eyes. And okay, maybe your parents thought it was cute. Maybe your siblings made fun of you. But did that stop you? Absolutely not. Because in your world, those plushies understood you. You could cry to them after a bad day. You could tell them your wildest dreams. You could even practice your school presentation to them. And let's be real, they were way more supportive than your classmates. Here's something even funnier. How many of us as full-grown adults still have one of those stuffed animals hiding in a closet or sitting on a shelf? Don't lie, you know they're there. Little beat up, maybe missing some fluff, but still holding all those childhood memories like the guardians of your weird little world. And hey, it wasn't just you. Every kid did this. Doesn't matter where you grew up, talking to stuffed animals is basically a universal language. It's like the first support group you ever joined. No judgment, no eye rolls, no interruptions, just soft, fuzzy friends who were always ready to listen. And don't even get me started on the Toy Story effect. Oh, after that movie? Oh, it was on. You were convinced those stuffed animals came to life the second you left the room. You'd crack open the door suddenly, hoping to catch them mid-party. You never did, but that didn't stop the theory. So yeah, talking to your stuffed animals might seem silly now, but honestly, it was pure magic. It was therapy. It was friendship. It was proof that as kids, we didn't need complicated things to feel seen, heard, and understood. And admit it, even now, when you see that old teddy bear from your childhood, there's a little voice in your head that wants to say, "Hey, buddy, it's been a while." And you know what? That's completely okay.
Pretending the bath was an ocean or submarine adventure. Bath time as a kid? Yeah, it was never just about getting clean. It wasn't some boring routine your parents made you do before bed. Nope. The second that water started running, that tub transformed into something way bigger. An ocean, a secret underwater cave, a wild submarine adventure where you, obviously, were the fearless explorer in charge. And let's be honest, the bathroom basically became your personal movie set. You'd grab the plastic boats, rubber ducks, or whatever random toys or parents allowed near water, and suddenly, you were deep-sea diving in uncharted territory. That tiny bar of soap, floating iceberg. The sponge, mysterious sea creature. Your rubber duck, best friend and sidekick on this aquatic journey. And if you were really dedicated, which, let's face it, most of us were, the water wasn't just water. It had bubbles, waves, storms. You'd slap the surface like there was a giant sea battle happening. Shampoo bottles? Oh yeah, those were submarines or enemy ships, depending on your mood. It was all very serious business. And of course, your parents were on the outside of this epic adventure yelling things like, "Hurry up, wash your hair, stop splashing." But inside that tub, you were dodging sharks, exploring shipwrecks, and maybe even discovering lost treasure. Usually a rogue bath toy that floated under the bubbles. You weren't just getting clean, you were living your best explorer life. Remember how you'd sink under the water, holding your breath, pretending you were diving to the bottom of the ocean? You'd pop back up, hair plastered to your face, feeling like a hero who just escaped danger. And let's not forget the classic. Tilting your head back to float, ears underwater, that weird muffled sound making it feel like you were drifting peacefully in the deep blue sea. And isn't it funny how the tub could be so small, but your imagination made it massive? It didn't matter that you could touch both ends with your toes. In your head, that bath was endless.
You could sail for hours, fight imaginary sea monsters, rescue entire kingdoms, all while avoiding accidentally flooding the bathroom floor, or at least trying to. And speaking of flooding, who else turned bath time into a full-blown water park? You'd splash so hard the floor was basically a slip and slide. Your parents? Not impressed. You? Living your best life. Towel piles on the floor, water everywhere, but hey, great explorers don't worry about a little mess. Here's the thing. Pretending the bath was an ocean wasn't just about entertainment. It was your escape. Your little slice of freedom where the rules of the world didn't apply. You could be brave. You could be silly. You could be anything. And for a few glorious soapy minutes, you weren't just a kid stuck in a routine. You were an adventurer. And can we talk about bubble beards for a second? Classic. No ocean adventure was complete without sculpting a majestic soap beard or bubble hairstyle. You'd sit there admiring your bubbly reflection in the faucet like, yes, I am the mighty sea captain now. It's kind of wild how something as simple as a bath became a portal to your imagination. And looking back, it makes you wonder, when did that stop? When did bath time turn into a quick adult chore? No bubbles, no rubber ducks, no imaginary sea monsters. Just get in, get clean, get out. Boring, right? Honestly, maybe we all need to channel a little less sometimes. Throw in some bubbles, float for a minute. Pretend you're steering a ship through a storm, even if you're just avoiding eye contact with your shampoo bottle. Life's stressful enough. We could all use a mini submarine adventure now and then. And hey, confession time. Some of us still sneak a bubble bath every now and then. No shame. Because deep down, that explorer spirit, it never really left. It's just quieter now. But trust me, the minute those bubbles hit the water, it's all coming back. So yeah, next time you hear water running, or pass by the bath section in a store with those ridiculous rubber ducks and toy submarines, smile. Remember your epic underwater adventures. And maybe, just maybe, let your inner sea captain take the wheel again, even if it's just for a few minutes.
Running your finger along condensation on windows. You know what was low-key one of the most satisfying little habits as a kid? Foggy windows. Yep, those magical, misted-up glass surfaces that basically turned every car ride, shower, or cold morning into your personal art studio. And the second you saw that fog on the window, game over. You had to drag your finger across it. It wasn't optional. It wasn't planned. It was just instinct. Car windows, bathroom mirrors, even the freezer door at the grocery store. Any glass with condensation on it became a blank canvas screaming for your artistic talents. One swipe of your tiny, slightly grubby finger, and suddenly you were an artist. And let's be honest, the first thing you drew, probably a smiley face. Classic move. Simple, iconic, timeless. Little eyes, big goofy grin, maybe some eyebrows if you were feeling extra fancy. And there it was, your little happy masterpiece staring back at you in the fog. But you didn't stop there. Nope. Once you got started, it was Doodle City. Hearts, stars, random squiggles, maybe even writing your name. And yeah, sometimes questionable drawings that made your parents do a double take, but hey, you were just expressing yourself. And nothing beat those long car rides on chilly mornings. You'd sit there bored out of your mind watching your breath fog up the window, and before long, the entire backseat window was covered in finger trails. Your sibling might have gotten mad because you ruined my side of the window, but you didn't care. It was prime real estate for your finger art. And let's be real, part of the fun wasn't just the drawing. It was watching it fade. You would sit there tracing lines, knowing the warmth or cold would eventually erase your masterpiece like magic. It was oddly satisfying, like watching your own personal time lapse in real life. Some of us even tried to beat the fog.
Have you ever blown hot breath on a cold window just to make that misty layer appear? Total science experiment. You were like, behold, I summon condensation. And then you'd immediately scribble all over it. Kid logic, flawless. And isn't it funny how your brain as a kid just knew this was allowed? Like, technically, you're not supposed to touch windows. You'd get fingerprints everywhere. But foggy windows, oh, that was the exception. It was basically an invitation to leave your mark. And of course, bathroom mirrors after a hot shower. That was next level. You'd finish your bath or your dramatic submarine adventure, let's be real, step out, and the mirror would be totally fogged up. Instant art opportunity. You draw silly faces, random shades, maybe even leave secret messages for the next person to find. And those secret messages, iconic. You'd write hi or a heart, and when the mirror cleared, it would disappear. But next time the room steamed up, boom, your hidden message reappeared like magic. You basically thought you were a genius spy. Forget fingerprints. This was invisible ink level creativity. And let's not lie, some of us got a little weird with it. You'd press your face or hand against the glass, leave creepy smudges, then laugh like a little maniac. Total chaos, total kid energy. But honestly, looking back, it wasn't just about doodling. It was this tiny, harmless moment of control. As a kid, so much of life was out of your hands. Adults made the rules, school had structure, bedtime was non-negotiable. But foggy windows? That was your space, your temporary art gallery, your little moment of quiet fun in a world full of don't touch that and be careful. And you know what? There's actually some science to the whole condensation thing too. Basically, when warm, moist air hits a cold surface, like a window, the moisture in the air cools down and turns into those little droplets we call fog or condensation. But do we care about thermodynamics as kids? Absolutely not. We just saw a blank, foggy canvas and said, yep, mine now. And here's the best part. Even as adults, the temptation never fully leaves. You still walk past a foggy window and think, should I? Just a quick smiley face, maybe? Some of us still do it. And honestly, that's pure wholesome nostalgia right there. So yeah, running your finger along condensation on windows might seem silly now, but it was one of those tiny, harmless habits that made the world feel fun. A little artistic rebellion, a little science experiment, and a whole lot of childhood magic, all with one swipe of your finger.
Making potions by mixing random household items. Okay, be honest. Who else went full mad scientist mode as a kid? You know what I'm talking about. Those legendary moments where you raided the kitchen, bathroom, or backyard and suddenly decided, yep, I'm making a potion. And this wasn't just some pretend tea party setup. No, this was serious business. You grab anything, shampoo, soap, dirt, leaves, water, maybe some glitter if you were fancy, toss it all into a cup, bowl, or even the sink, and voila, you had your very own mysterious, magical, probably disgusting potion. The best part? You had no clue what the potion did, but you knew it was powerful. Maybe it could turn your siblings invisible. Maybe it could make you fly. Or maybe, just maybe, it was the antidote to save the world from an imaginary disaster only you knew about. The possibilities were endless, and honestly, so was the mess. And can we talk about the actual process for a second? It was chaotic. You'd be in the bathroom, squirting half a bottle of your mom's expensive shampoo into a plastic cup, then sprinkling in some toothpaste like it was fairy dust. If you were feeling bold, you might even sneak a little baby powder or lotion in there too, just to spice things up. And then came the backyard additions. Leaves? Essential. Dirt? Of course. Random flower petals you picked without asking? Absolutely. Maybe even a worm or two if you were really committed to the realism. You'd stir that mess together with a stick or a spoon, convinced you were one ingredient away from cracking the code to immortality. And yeah, your parents, they were never impressed. You'd proudly show off your slimy, bubbly, weird-colored concoction, all excited, like, "Look, Mom, I made a love potion." Meanwhile, she's staring at her half-empty shampoo bottle like, "I'm gonna need a real potion to calm down after this." But the thing is, as ridiculous as it was, making potions was pure childhood creativity. It wasn't just about dumping random stuff together. Okay, mostly it was, but deep down it was about imagining you had power. You weren't just a kid stuck following rules. You were a scientist, a wizard, a secret agent cooking up the next great invention. And honestly, that chaotic mess of shampoo and dirt, it taught you your first lessons in chemistry. Kind of. Sure, your potion probably smelled like a nightmare and stained the sink, but it was hands-on experimenting before you even knew what science class was. And isn't it funny how there were always rules to potion making, even if you made them up? Like, you have to stir it 3 times counterclockwise for the magic to work. Or, only purple flower petals make it a real invisibility potion. It was completely made up, but you were dead serious about it. And remember the dramatic reveal? You'd mix everything together, take a big, proud step back, and present your bubbling, slimy creation like it belonged in a fantasy movie. Did you ever drink it? Hopefully not. But did you pretend to? Oh yeah. You'd make gagging sounds, fake fainting, or claim you suddenly had superpowers. Full performance mode. And you weren't alone. Potions were universal. Every kid, no matter where they grew up, seemed to go through the mixing random household stuff together phase. Maybe it's wired into our brains, the need to feel like little scientists or wizards, even if it means wrecking the bathroom in the process. Here's a fun fact to blow your mind. Actual scientists kind of do what you did, just with real ingredients and actual knowledge. They experiment, they mix, they observe. Granted, they're not throwing shampoo and mud together hoping to invent invisibility, but hey, it starts somewhere, right? And think about it. Maybe your love for potions was your first spark of curiosity. Your first moment of wondering, what happens if I mix this with that? Sure, it didn't lead to real magic, but maybe it planted the seed that made you ask questions, explore, and experiment later in life. Plus, let's be honest, making potions was just plain fun. It was messy, unpredictable, and totally harmless, unless you got a little too wild with the food coloring or forgot to clean up. Then, yeah, consequences happened. But at the end of the day, you weren't just making a potion. You were creating, exploring, and stepping into a world where anything was possible. All with a plastic cup, some shampoo, and a whole lot of imagination.
Walking on tiptoes for no reason. Okay, let's be honest. At some point during your childhood, you were just walking around the house, minding your own business, and suddenly your brain went, "You know what? Let's walk on tiptoes now." No explanation, no goal. You weren't sneaking past anyone. You weren't a ballerina. But there you were, creeping around like a suspicious little elf for absolutely no reason. And you know what? It was oddly satisfying. It usually started off innocent enough. Maybe you were barefoot, the floor was cold, or the tiles made funny noises when you walked normal. So naturally, the solution, tiptoe mode, activated. Suddenly, you're walking softer than a cat burglar, feeling like a ninja. Except, of course, you probably still made plenty of noise because little kids aren't exactly subtle. Or maybe, and this one hits home, you pretended you were a secret spy. The mission? Get to the kitchen without your parents knowing. The method? Walking on your toes like your life depended on it. In your head, it was basically a high-stakes action movie. In reality, you probably still stepped on every creaky floorboard. But here's the weird part. Sometimes you weren't even sneaking. Sometimes your brain just said, tiptoe time. You could be in the middle of the living room, broad daylight, no mission, no goal, and suddenly you're prancing around on your toes like some kind of confused ballerina giraffe hybrid. And let's not forget, for some of us, it was a whole personality trait. You aren't just occasionally walking on tiptoes, you did it all the time. At home, at school, at the grocery store. Parents probably wondered if you were part bird or just auditioning for Swan Lake. What's funny is, for most adults now, walking on tiptoes feels weird. Your cows hurt, your balance is questionable, and honestly, you're one wobble away from disaster. But as a kid, effortless. You had energy for days, zero joint pain, and apparently a built-in urge to hover slightly above the ground for a dramatic effect. And guess what? There's actually a little science behind this. See, kids walking on their tiptoes is super common. It's a developmental phase. When you're small, your balance, muscles, and coordination are still figuring things out. So walking on your toes, sometimes it's just part of learning how to control your body. Totally harmless, totally normal, unless it sticks around way longer, then maybe your doctor gives you the talk. But for most of us, it wasn't a medical thing, it was pure fun. Tiptoeing made you feel light, sneaky, special. Like you weren't just a kid walking to the kitchen, you were floating there like some teeny magical creature. Or you were an animal, because let's face it, animal impressions were half your childhood. I'm a cat now, I'm a deer, I'm a velociraptor. I'm whatever animal walks quietly and dramatically. And yeah, sometimes it turned competitive. Remember trying to walk the entire length of a hallway on tiptoed without falling? If you made it, you felt invincible. If you slipped, full cartoon level drama, arms flailing, probably knocking something over. And let's not forget the floor is lava days. When tiptoeing wasn't enough, you had to jump from pillow to pillow or furniture to furniture. But even when the floor is safe, your feet still decided, we don't fully trust this surface. Better go tiptoe mode. Even in public places, you catch yourself doing it. Grocery store aisle, tiptoe. Waiting in line, tiptoe. Church or library where you were supposed to be quiet, oh, tiptoe master activated. Even if the floor still creaked louder than your whispering. It's one of those harmless, hilarious little habits that doesn't seem weird as a kid, but you look back now, picturing your tiny self tiptoeing around like a sneaky cartoon character, and you can't help but laugh. And honestly, sometimes I think adults could use a little more of that. Imagine tiptoeing into your next Zoom meeting or sneaking around the office just because. Would it be weird? Definitely. Would it be kind of fun? Absolutely. So yeah, walking on tiptoes for no reason, harmless, weird, and yet somehow a rite of passage for basically every kid on the planet.
Holding your breath when passing graveyards. Okay, time to confess. Who else absolutely held their breath every single time they passed a graveyard? No questions asked, no debates. The moment your eyes spotted those headstones, it was like an automatic survival response. Deep inhale, hold. Okay, we're past it. Exhale. You made it. And the funniest part? Most of us never even questioned why we were doing that. It was like an unspoken childhood law. Graveyard equals no breathing. Didn't matter if you were walking, driving, on your bike, in a car with your parents. You saw a graveyard, you clamped your mouth shut like your life depended on it. And let's be real. Sometimes those graveyards were huge.
You'd be holding your breath, turning blue in the back seat, eyes watering, lungs on fire, desperately waiting for the car to finally pass the last tombstone. Meanwhile, your parents, blissfully unaware that their kid is back there basically training for an underwater breathing competition. And where did this bizarre habit even come from? It wasn't like someone handed out official instructions at school. It just happened. One day, some other kid probably whispered, "Hey, you have to hold your breath past the cemetery or the ghosts will get you." And that was it. No scientific proof, no logic, just pure playground wisdom that we all immediately believed like gospel. And it didn't matter how old you were. That fear hit different at night. Passing a graveyard in daylight, mildly spooky, manageable. Passing a graveyard at night, you're not just holding your breath. You're plastered against the car window, wide-eyed, convinced some ghostly hand is about to tap on the glass. And remember how if you accidentally breathe in the middle of the graveyard stretch, oh, it was over. You basically cursed yourself. You'd be mentally preparing for a ghost to follow you home like, well, guess I'm haunted now. Rookie mistake. But honestly, as ridiculous as it sounds now, holding your breath past graveyards came from the same place all those quirky childhood habits did. Pure imagination, mixed with just enough spooky folklore to keep things interesting. And actually, it's not even a new thing. Throughout history, people have had weird little traditions and superstitions about graveyards. In some cultures, folks believed that spirits could enter your body through your breath. So by holding it, you were, in theory, keeping those sneaky ghosts out. Wild, right? So your goofy kid ritual, it's got roots that go way back. But as a kid, did you know that? Nope. You just knew that breathing while passing the cemetery meant guaranteed ghost position. Obviously. And sometimes it wasn't even about fear. It became a game. You challenge yourself and your friends, like, I bet I can hold my breath longer than you past the graveyard. Competitive, yet terrifying, because halfway through, you're both red-faced, gasping, but refusing to admit defeat, all while the car casually cruises past row after row of tombstones. And don't lie, even now as a grown adult, there's still a tiny voice in the back of your head when you pass a graveyard. You might not always hold your breath, but you think about it. You get that little internal nudge like, should I? And sometimes you still do, just in case. Because, hey, better safe than sorry when it comes to vengeful spirits. Right? And it's kind of hilarious how that one harmless childhood habit stuck with so many of us. It's proof of how seriously we took the little rituals and rules we made up, even when they made absolutely no sense. But that's what being a kid was all about. Turning ordinary moments like driving past the cemetery into dramatic life or death adventures. It made the world feel mysterious, full of hidden rules and spooky consequences. And honestly, it kept things interesting. So yeah, holding your breath past graveyards, completely weird, totally harmless, but also low-key kinda legendary.
Making secret codes that nobody could actually understand. Okay, let's be real. As a kid, you were basically convinced you were a spy, a secret agent, or maybe even a pirate with buried treasure. And obviously, all those important operations required one thing: secret codes. And by secret codes, I mean absolute nonsense. But oh man, at the time, it felt like you were operating at FBI-level security clearance. It usually started with a piece of scrap paper, maybe a notebook page, and your brain fired up like, all right, time to invent an unbreakable language.
You'd draw weird symbols, random shapes, lines that made no sense to anyone, and proudly declare, "This is my secret code." And let's be honest, even you probably forgot how it worked 5 minutes later. But in the moment, it felt powerful. You weren't just scribbling, you were creating a whole system, a language only you and maybe your best friend could understand. And if anyone else, parents, siblings, enemies, tried to crack it, haha, good luck. They were locked out of the inner circle. Remember how seriously you take it? You'd pass coded notes across the classroom full of random squiggles, fully convinced the teacher couldn't possibly decode your master plan. Meanwhile, your code was literally just backwards letters or replacing every E with a star. Super advanced stuff. Sometimes it wasn't even written. It was spoken gibberish. You and your friend would make up a language on the spot, saying things like blargon flibbity blue, while giggling uncontrollably, certain you were basically international spies. Your parents would overhear and be like, "What is wrong with them?" And oh, the decoders. Anyone else try to make those paper decoder rings or complicated charts where each letter corresponded to a different symbol or number? You'd spend hours meticulously designing it, proud of your genius, only to lose the decoder 2 days later, leaving your entire secret language permanently unsolvable. The thing is, this weird obsession with secret codes wasn't just random. It was your kid brain experimenting with mystery, independence, and creativity. You wanted to feel like you had your own private world, your own club, separate from adults, siblings, or that annoying cousin who always tattled. And the best part, you didn't even need a real reason for the code. It wasn't like you were guarding state secrets. Usually the messages were like, "Meet me at the swings after lunch," or "Jessica smells funny." Truly highly classified intel. But to you, it mattered. Those codes felt like a shield, a tiny piece of control over your world. Plus, let's be honest, it made you feel smart. You couldn't do taxes or understand why your parents liked the news, but you could invent an entire language. That's practically genius territory. And sure, sometimes the codes made no sense, even to the people using them. You and your friend would spend hours making up a system only to argue halfway through because neither of you could remember what symbol meant what. Or you'd create a whole elaborate alphabet replacement only to realize writing a single sentence took approximately 4 hours. So naturally, you'd abandon the code halfway and just write in normal English. Classic. What's wild is, as adults, we still love secret codes. We've just upgraded them. Cryptic passwords, online encryption, even emojis sometimes feel like modern hieroglyphics. But the pure, messy joy of childhood secret codes, nothing beats that. And hey, you probably still have an old notebook or piece of paper buried somewhere with those weird symbols, faded and confusing. And if you found it now, good luck translating that. Even the CIA couldn't crack that code. But that's the beauty of it. It wasn't really about secrecy. It was about imagination, feeling clever, and turning boring moments into your own personal spy adventure. So yeah. Making secret codes nobody could understand, harmless, ridiculous, but honestly, pretty brilliant.
Drawing on your hands or arms with pens. So tell me, how many masterpieces did you casually create on your own skin? Yeah, I'm talking about those days when your arm, hand, or sometimes even your entire leg basically became your personal art canvas, courtesy of whatever pen or marker you could get your hands on. And no, I'm not talking about face paint at a carnival. I'm talking about being bored in class, zoning out during homework, or just sitting around at home, and suddenly your brain goes, "Hey,
I could totally draw a whole dragon on my hand right now. And you'd do it. You'd sit there with your ballpoint pen, sketching little doodles, smiley faces, hearts, stars, or random squiggles that meant nothing, and proudly admire your work like you were basically the next Da Vinci, except with Bic ink. But let's be real. The first stage was always the innocent doodle. A little star here, a tiny flower there. But then you'd get ambitious. Full wrist tattoos, entire sleeve designs. You'd fill up your hand, your arm, maybe even sneak a marker up your sleeve when no one was looking so you could keep the masterpiece going. And when you ran out of space, time to switch to the other hand. Half the time, your friends got involved too. You'd draw on them, they'd draw on you. It was an unspoken childhood agreement. Bored? Out of paper? No problem. Your skin is fair game. And it wasn't just doodles. Sometimes it was words. You'd write your name, your crush's name, and secret code, of course. Inside jokes or dramatic statements like rock star or I love pizza on your arm like it was some kind of life motto. The best part, you felt so cool. Like walking around with a full sleeve of doodles made you feel rebellious. Like you'd just casually gotten a tattoo, never mind that it was fading blue ink and would wash off with one shower. Of course, there was always that one friend who took it to the extreme. Black Sharpie, entire body covered, suddenly looked like they escaped from art class gone rogue. And their parents, oh, you could tell whose mom was not happy about it when they showed up at dinner with I love dinosaurs scribbled across their forehead. And who else remembers the forbidden marker colors? Like those giant permanent markers that teachers used. And as kids, you knew if you got your hands on one, the doodles would last for days. It was basically the holy grail of skin art. But here's the hilarious part. Adults would always freak out about it. Stop drawing on yourself. You'll get ink poisoning. That'll never come off. You're going to ruin your skin. And as a kid, you just stared at them like, relax, it's a flower. It's not a grime. And by the way, ink poisoning? Yeah, turns out, unless you're literally injecting yourself with ink, you're probably fine. The doodles, totally harmless. Messy, sure, but dangerous? Not really. What's funny is fast forward to adulthood, and guess what? Actual tattoos, permanent ink on skin. It's basically the grown-up version of what you were doing in 4th grade with a blue pen and a dream. And honestly, some of those old doodles were probably more creative than half the trendy tattoos you see today. Admit it, little you had style. But behind the art itself, there was something super comforting about doodling on your skin. It was your little escape, your boredom cure, your quiet rebellion when life felt, well, full of rules. So yeah, drawing on your hands and arms, completely pointless, totally messy, but somehow kind of therapeutic. And looking back, it was one of those harmless habits that made being a kid feel fun, free, and weirdly artistic.
Believing adults could read your mind. Okay, think back to when you were like 5, maybe 6. You're sitting there, maybe at the dinner table, maybe at school, quietly minding your business, but deep down, you're terrified to think anything too weird, because what if the adults know what you're thinking? Seriously, as kids, we genuinely believed our parents, teachers, basically any grown-up had some top secret ability to read our minds. Like they could just sense if we were thinking something naughty or silly or, heaven forbid, something about that crush from school. It wasn't even a logical fear. It was just this feeling that grown-ups were these all-knowing, all-seeing creatures. You'd be sitting there thinking, I really don't want to eat these peas. And suddenly your mom would look over and you'd have a mini panic attack like, oh, no, she knows. And it didn't help that adults always had that mysterious, I know what you did vibe. They catch you sneaking cookies or fibbing about brushing your teeth, and you'd be like, it's official. They can read my mind. My thoughts aren't safe. And remember at school, the teacher would suddenly call on you in the middle of your daydreaming, and for a split second, your heart stopped. Did she hear me zoning out? Did she know I was imagining myself as a ninja instead of listening to math? Or worse, when you were thinking something super awkward like, Mr. Johnson's bald head looks like a potato. And then he'd walk by, glance your direction, and you'd be convinced he knew your deepest, most offensive thought. The paranoia was real. It got to the point where you literally try to shield your thoughts. You'd sit there, poker face on, thinking super neutral things like, I love my parents, I love school, I am a good child, just in case anyone was mentally tuning in. It's hilarious now, right? But back then, it felt completely legit. You figured adults had some magical sixth sense. They always seemed to know when you were lying, when you did something wrong, or when you were about to sneak an extra cookie. To your tiny developing brain, the only explanation? Mind reading. Of course, what they actually had was something called experience. Years of spotting sneaky kid behavior, noticing guilty faces, and catching on to the obvious clues we thought were so subtle. But to us, total telepathy. And let's not forget the worst scenario. When you were thinking about doing something really mischievous, like sneaking into the cookie jar, staying up past bedtime, or plotting a sibling prank, and then boom, a parent would walk in the room. Frozen, busted, thoughts exposed, you'd backpedal so fast, I wasn't thinking anything, I swear, I'm innocent. Meanwhile, your mom's just looking for a phone charger. What's wild is even though we grew out of believing in actual mind reading, some of that childhood anxiety stuck around. Ever been in a meeting as an adult and your boss looks at you while you're zoning out and suddenly you're like, do they know I'm picturing a dog in sunglasses instead of focusing? Childhood paranoia never fully leaves. But here's the fun part. That old fear actually showed how much respect and low-key fear we had for adults. We saw them as these all-powerful beings, guardians of all knowledge, capable of hearing our thoughts and uncovering our silly little secrets. Looking back, it's kind of wholesome and ridiculous. And now that we're adults, spoiler alert, we can't read minds either. We just have the same suspicious glance, the same parent senses, and half the time we're winging it like the kids we used to be. So yeah, believing adults could read your mind? Totally irrational, completely unnecessary, but honestly, a classic, harmless childhood belief that made growing up just a little more mysterious and hilarious.
Licking a frozen pole or ice and getting stuck. Okay, I need to ask, were you the kid who tried it? Or were you the one who watched someone else do it and learned the easy way? Either way, the tongue stuck to frozen metal situation is one of those classic moments that perfectly sums up childhood curiosity, mixed with questionable decision-making. It usually starts with the scene we've all seen. Winter rolls around, it's freezing cold, there's frost on everything, and suddenly, that shiny metal pole is calling your name. Your brain, as a kid, goes, hey, I wonder what would happen if I licked that. Your common sense? Totally missing. Your friends? Probably encouraging you. The result? Disaster. But you had to find out for yourself. And don't lie, even if you didn't do it, you definitely heard the legend. Maybe from an older sibling or some kid on the playground, or that one Christmas movie, you know the one, where the kid gets his tongue stuck to the flagpole and suddenly regrets every life choice. But of course, seeing it on TV and actually experiencing it, two very different things. For the bold ones who went for it, you probably remember the instant regret. The cold metal, the tongue making contact, and within a second, stuck. Like properly stuck. At first you're confused. Then comes the panic, the tugging, the realization that no amount of pulling is going to save you now. Cue the tears or the hysterical laughter from your friends, or both. And the adults, they always reacted the same way. Half concerned, half exasperated. Why would you even do that? But come on, curiosity is powerful. And when you're a kid, science experiments often double as life lessons.
But here's where it gets kinda cool and grossly fascinating. There's actual science behind this ridiculous moment. See, when you lick a frozen metal surface, the moisture from your tongue instantly freezes onto the super cold metal. Your tongue basically acts like glue. And because the metal conducts heat so well, it sucks the warmth right out of your skin. So boom, stuck city. The worst part? If you panic and yank your tongue off, it can actually rip the skin. Yep, tiny battle scars of childhood stupidity. The proper rescue plan? Warm water. But let's be honest, most of us weren't exactly packing emergency supplies on the playground. So unless a helpful adult showed up with hot water, you were basically doomed to stay there, tongue fused to a pole, reflecting on your life choices. And it wasn't just poles, popsicles, frozen doorknobs, icicles, anything super cold and smooth was fair game for this sticky situation. Kids have a weird way of testing boundaries and taste buds. But you know what? As ridiculous as it was, that little moment taught you something. You might have learned about basic physics, or the harsh realities of winter, or maybe, just maybe, it was your first taste, pun intended, of regret. The hilarious part? Most adults have a story like this. Either they did it themselves, or they watched some other poor soul get stuck. It's like an unspoken club of frozen tongue survivors. And now, every winter, when you walk past a frozen pole or icy railing, there's a part of you, the wise adult part, that chuckles and thinks, I know better now. But deep down, that curious little kid still whispers, but what if this time it's different? Spoiler alert, it's not.
Trying to touch the ceiling fan while it was spinning. Okay, picture this. You're a kid lying on the floor or standing on the bed, staring up at the ceiling fan, and for some reason, it just calls to you. It's hypnotic. The way those blades slice through the air, spinning so fast, making that little whirring noise, it's practically screaming, I dare you. And your little kid brain? Zero hesitation. Zero magic, just pure curiosity with a dash of poor decision-making. What would happen if I touched it? That's it. That's the whole thought process. No concern about injury, no thoughts of broken fingers, no awareness of basic physics, just an unstoppable urge to poke the spinning fan. Now, for some of us, this was a solo mission. You'd stack pillows, climb on the bed, or stretch your arm as far as possible, fingers wiggling toward the spinning blades like you were about to discover the secrets of the universe. Others, you had an accomplice, a sibling, a friend hyping you up from below like, yeah, do it, you got this. True peer pressure in its purest form. And then, contact. If you were lucky, you barely brushed it. The fan wobbled and you scurried away feeling like you just robbed a bank. If you weren't so lucky, whack, the blade smacks your hand, your fingers sting, your pride takes a hit, and suddenly you realize maybe the ceiling fan is not to be messed with. And for the truly ambitious kids, the ones who thought, why not stop at just touching it? Let me jump into it. Yeah, they learned physics the hard way, usually with a bump on the head or a stern parent yelling, what were you thinking? But honestly, can we blame ourselves? Ceiling fans were like the forbidden fruit of household appliances, always spinning, always slightly out of reach, always looking like they belonged in an action movie stunt. And let's talk about the logic or lack thereof. As kids, we genuinely thought our hands were fast enough to dodge the blades. The fan blades were soft and harmless. We were basically superheroes. Spoiler alert, none of that was true. And movies and cartoons didn't help. You'd see characters leaping through spinning obstacles, dodging helicopter blades, pulling off these impossible stunts, and your brain would go, I could totally do that with my ceiling fan. It never occurred to us that those blades were moving at like Mach speed, or that even though they looked flimsy, getting smacked by one felt like a slap from a wooden plank. Also, can we take a second to appreciate how many of our parents had no idea how many near-death experiences happened right under their roof? You're in your room plotting your ceiling fan mission, and meanwhile, your mom's downstairs thinking you're quietly coloring or reading. In reality, you're training for the world's most dangerous and unnecessary Olympic event. But here's the funny thing. As adults, we look back and laugh, but the curiosity? Still kind of there. You walk into a room, see a ceiling fan spinning, and for that split second, that little voice returns, I wonder what would happen if I... Of course, grown-up common sense kicks in now. We've learned. We've evolved. But let's be honest, the only reason we're truly safe from ceiling fan injuries is because we're not small enough to climb furniture anymore. So yeah, trying to touch the spinning ceiling fan? Classic, harmless, mostly childhood habit. Dangerous, maybe, but also a perfect example of how curiosity, boredom, and pure kid energy often collide, with occasionally hilarious, occasionally painful results.
Creating forts out of blankets and chairs. Tell me this isn't relatable. It's a rainy afternoon, you're stuck indoors, maybe a little bored, and suddenly inspiration strikes. The living room, your bedroom, grandma's house, it doesn't matter where you are. Every single location instantly transforms into a potential construction site for the greatest architectural masterpiece a kid can create. The blanket fort. And listen, I don't care if you were the meticulous type who carefully planned every corner, or if you were the creative chaotic who just started tossing pillows and sheets everywhere. Building a fort was serious business. First, you had to scout materials. Blankets? Essential. Pillows? Absolutely. Chairs? The backbone of your fortress. The couch cushions? Oh, they were currency. And if you could sneak in a broomstick or two for extra height, you were basically an interior designer. Then came the strategy. Where would the walls go? How would you keep the ceiling from collapsing? Was this going to be a cozy little hideout or an elaborate multi-room mansion? All important questions, all decided by your 8-year-old brain in about 30 seconds. And don't even get me started on the level of pride that came with finishing your fort. You'd crawl inside, look around at the sagging sheets, lopsided walls, the one chair barely holding everything up, and yet, to you, it was perfect. It wasn't just a bunch of blankets and chairs. Oh no, that was your secret lair, your pirate ship, your royal castle, your spaceship hurtling through the galaxy. The possibilities? Endless. But let's not forget the drama, because no fort-building mission was ever smooth sailing. First off, gravity was your enemy. Those sheets constantly slipping. The chairs always tipping over. The broomstick support beams? Yeah, they didn't exactly pass building codes. And heaven help you if you had siblings involved. Fort building quickly turned into fort wars. This is my side. You're messing up the roof. Mom, they took all the good blankets. And of course, eventually, disaster struck. The roof caved in, the whole structure collapsed, you got buried under a pile of cushions. Traumatic, but oddly fun. Sometimes you just left the mess and started again. Other times, full tantrum mode. But here's the hilarious part. Adult watching this happen probably saw a chaotic mess of pillows, sheets, and furniture. But to you, that was sacred ground. Nobody touched the fort. Entering without permission, grounds for war. And if your parents did crawl inside to check it out, that was the ultimate validation. Suddenly, your blanket fort wasn't just a mess in the living room.
It was officially recognized by grown-up authorities. You were basically an architect. But beyond the fun, blanket forts kind of taught us something cool. Teamwork, or how to argue. Problem solving, even if it involved duct tape. An imagination without limits. And let's be real, if you've ever seen a kid today build a fort, or heck, if you secretly wanted to do it yourself as an adult, that feeling never really leaves. The idea that with just some blankets and chairs, you can create your own little world. That's the magic of being a kid. So next time you see a sagging pile of sheets draped over your couch, don't roll your eyes. Remember, inside that fort, an entire adventure is happening, and you probably built one just like it once upon a time.
Jumping downstairs to skip as many as possible. Let me paint the scene for you. You're standing at the top of the staircase. You look down. Maybe it's 5 steps. Maybe it's 15. Doesn't matter. Your brain does a quick calculation that has absolutely nothing to do with physics or safety. I bet I can jump down at least 3. And just like that, you're an Olympic long jumper in your own home. At first, you play it safe. You jump down 1 step. Easy. You feel powerful, confidence growing. You try 2 steps. Still alive? Excellent. But then greed takes over. 3 steps, 4 steps. Your little legs start defying the laws of gravity, or so you think. Suddenly, you're in full Mission Impossible mode, leaping down a staircase like your life depends on it. And let's be honest, half the time, you nailed it like a pro. You stuck the landing like a pro. You felt invincible. Your brain was screaming, "I am speed!" The other half? Yeah, gravity had different plans. You land wrong, you stumble, maybe you fall flat on your face, or worse, you roll your ankle. But somehow, even through the tears or scraped knees, all you could think was, dang, almost had it. And this wasn't just a solo sport. No, this turned into a full-blown competition if you had siblings or friends over. Suddenly it was, bet I can jump further than you. Psst, I cleared 4 steps yesterday. Yeah, but did you land it? Before you knew it, kids were launching themselves off the top step, risking life and limb for ultimate bragging rights. Let's not forget the secret thrill of doing it when your parents weren't looking. You know they'd lose their minds if they caught you. Do not jump off the stairs. You'll break something. And in your head, you're thinking, yeah, probably, but also, look how cool this is. Looking back, it's kind of wild how convinced we were that our tiny bodies could handle these stunts. It seemed superheroes leap off rooftops and land perfectly. Surely the stairs at Grandma's house couldn't be that dangerous, right? Wrong. But hey, we learned eventually, usually after a few bruises and a healthy dose of parental panic. And the funny part, as adult, stairs have completely changed meaning. Now it's, stairs. My knees hurt. Is there an elevator? But every now and then, standing at the top of a staircase, that little voice creeps back in. That I could still jump at least 3. Spoiler, you probably can't. But the memory, the thrill, it stays with you forever. So yeah, jumping down the stairs, harmless childhood happened. Unless you miscalculated. But it taught us confidence, physics, the hard way, and just how far our legs could carry us. Literally and figuratively.
Staring out the car window pretending to be in a music video. Have you ever looked back at your childhood and realized we were all walking around like mini soap opera stars? I mean, seriously, there's one thing so many of us did that perfectly sums up the peak drama we thought our lives had, and that's sitting in the back seat of a car, staring out the window, and pretending we were in a full-blown music video. And let's be honest, That wasn't just some passing thought. That was a whole experience. Picture this. You're maybe 7, maybe 10, maybe even 15 if you really stretched the drama years. You're sitting there, seatbelt barely hanging on, chin resting on your hand like you're pondering life's deepest mysteries, and suddenly, the car becomes a tour bus, a movie set, or your own personal escape scene. The world outside? That's just the background for your mental music video. If you were lucky, it was raining. Because rain, rain completed the vibe. Nothing made your imaginary heartbreak or emotional turmoil feel more legit than raindrops racing down the glass. You watch them, silently rooting for one of them to win the little droplet race, all while the saddest song you knew played on loop in your head. Or, and tell me I'm wrong, you'd actually have your Walkman or iPod or just that radio humming in the background. And suddenly Coldplay, Linkin Park, Avril Lavigne, or some random ballad your parents liked became the soundtrack to your dramatic existence. But it didn't have to be sad. Oh no. Sometimes it was the ultimate power anthem. You'd stare out the window like some misunderstood rebel, eyes narrowed, thinking, one day they'll all see. See what? You had no idea. But that didn't matter. The look, the vibe, the energy, impeccable. And depending on the song, your storyline would change. Slow, sad music, you're running away from home. You've been wronged, probably framed for a crime you didn't commit. Upbeat, empowering song, you just broke free. You're on your way to a new life, maybe a road trip montage scene. Mysterious instrumental, you're on a secret mission. Your parents think you're just in the back seat, but you know you've got bigger plans. And if your family was arguing or your siblings were being annoying, that only added fuel to the fire. You'd stare out that window thinking, I'm adopted. These aren't my real parents. One day my real family will come find me. Or, I was switched at birth. I'm actually royalty. They just don't know yet. Tell me I'm not describing your exact childhood thought process right now. And hey, let's not forget how sometimes it wasn't even about the music. It was just about zoning out and feeling like you were in a different world. The trees blurring past, the sun flickering through the window. You aren't just going to the grocery store. You were escaping. You were imagining what your life could be. And the wildest part? We still do it. Think about the last time you sat in the passenger seat. Headphones in, playlist on point, watching the world outside. You didn't say a word, but your brain was editing a music video in real time. The funny thing is, as kids, we didn't even understand half the lyrics we were pretending to be sad about. Why'd you have to go and make things so complicated? Meanwhile, our biggest life complication was math homework and whether our Game Boy was charged. But the emotion, the drama, 100% real. And if you were lucky enough to sit by the window, especially during sunset, that was cinematic gold. You'd gaze out like you were the star of some coming-of-age indie film, even though your only destination was Aunt Susan's house for a potluck. The worst, or maybe the best, was when your reflection in the window lined up just right. You caught a glimpse of your own face, and for a split second you thought, wow, tragic, mysterious, kind of cool looking. This is my moment. It didn't matter if your hair was a mess or you had juice stains on your shirt. In that reflection, you were the brooding protagonist with a complicated past. And the more mundane the trip, the more your imagination ran wild. Grocery store, you're being driven to your new boarding school. Pharmacy, you're escaping an evil organization. Stuck in traffic, classic brooding scene where your character reflects on their past mistakes. It was basically free therapy, all thanks to your wildly overactive, dramatic little brain. And the truth is, those car window daydreams weren't just harmless fun. They were proof of how creative we were as kids, how we turned boring, everyday moments into full-blown productions in our heads. And maybe, just maybe, that's something we should hang on to as adults. Because let's be real, life gets repetitive. Commutes, errands, traffic, it's easy to zone out. But tap back into that childhood drama, suddenly you're not stuck in traffic. You're making your grand escape. You're not going to work. You're chasing your dreams across a vast unknown world. And hey, worst case, you look like a weirdo zoning out in the car. Best case, you reclaim a little piece of that ridiculous, creative, totally harmless childhood habit that honestly made life a lot more entertaining.
Believing quicksand would be a real-life problem. Okay, can we just take a moment to talk about one of the biggest betrayals of our childhood? I'm talking about the absolute overhype of quicksand. Because, to be honest, based on how many cartoons, movies, and shows we watched as kids, quicksand was supposed to be a daily hazard. It was everywhere. It was lurking, just waiting to swallow you whole the moment you let your guard down. Like, I distinctly remember being about 7 years old, running through the park, and in the back of my mind there was always this tiny, irrational fear whispering, "Careful, what if there's quicksand?" In the park, next to the swings, in the middle of suburbia. Quicksand, in my innocent little brain, was this unavoidable, constantly looming danger. You couldn't go hiking, exploring, or even slightly off the sidewalk without risking your life. It was just waiting, disguised as an innocent patch of ground ready to gobble you up in seconds. And the worst part? TV shows made it look impossible to escape. Remember that? The moment someone stepped in, they'd sink dramatically, flailing their arms, gasping for breath, their friends on the sideline screaming, "Grab the stick! Grab the stick!" Meanwhile, as a kid, watching this unfold, your palms were sweating. You were taking mental notes like, okay, if I ever fall in quicksand, stay calm, look for a stick, call for help. Got it. It was practically survival training, courtesy of Nickelodeon and Saturday morning cartoons. But here's the thing. Where exactly was this quicksand? Did anyone you know actually encounter it? No, absolutely not. Yet somehow we were all mentally prepared. I genuinely thought I'd face quicksand before adulthood, like at least once. It felt inevitable. You'd be out in the woods, or let's be honest, maybe just your backyard, and bam, quicksand strikes. It wasn't just cartoons either. Even adventure movies fueled this fear. Indiana Jones, quicksand. Jungle Book, quicksand. Every single jungle-themed movie, yep, some poor character would start sinking. And the drama. Oh, the drama was intense. People never just casually fell into quicksand. It was always slow motion, dramatic music swelling, their loved ones reaching out like it was the end of the world. You'd watch it thinking, this could be me. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Turns out, quicksand isn't exactly lurking around every corner waiting to ruin your day. In fact, scientifically speaking, quicksand isn't even as deadly as we thought. Shocking, right? Here's the deal. Quicksand is basically just a mix of sand, water, and sometimes clay, where the sand gets suspended in water and loses its stability. Step on it wrong, and yeah, you might sink. A little. But sink to your doom? Vanish without a trace? Dramatically disappear like you're in some tragic jungle accident? Not exactly. See, quicksand is denser than the human body, which means, in reality, you wouldn't sink forever. At most, you'd get stuck up to your waist, maybe chest, and it'd be really hard and really embarrassing to wiggle free. But unless you panicked and flailed around like a cartoon character, you'd probably be fine. Honestly, it's more of an inconvenience than a death trap. Scientists even say the real danger is if you're in an isolated place with no help and you get stuck. But again, how often are you wandering deep into swamps or riverbeds as an average suburban kid? Never. But that didn't stop our imaginations from running wild.
We'd go outside, see a muddy patch, and our little childhood brains immediately thought, Is that quicksand? Should I pest it? No, better stay on the path. I'm not ready to go out like that. It was the same energy as being afraid of sharks in swimming pools. Completely irrational, but completely believable when you're 6. And you know what's funny? The older we got, the more we realized how exaggerated the whole thing was. And yet some tiny part of us still half expects quicksand to be a real issue. Like, admit it, if you went hiking tomorrow and saw a patch of weird, wet sand, some ancient childhood memory would flare up and your brain would scream, "Don't step there, it's quicksand." Even though logic, science, and your GPS all say you're just near a puddle, honestly, it's kind of adorable how prepared we were for completely fictional dangers. Quicksand? Check. Lava floors? Check. Anvils falling from the sky like in Looney Tunes. You never knew. We grew up thinking life was one giant obstacle course of bizarre hazards ready to test our survival skills at any moment. Meanwhile, the real dangers? Taxes, car maintenance, accidentally replying all on a work email. No cartoon warned us about that. But hey, maybe that's the charm of it all. Those harmless childhood fears and misunderstandings made life a little more exciting. We turned playgrounds into adventure zones, sidewalks into lava fields, and every muddy patch into a life-or-death scenario. And honestly, I kind of miss it. Because as ridiculous as it was, believing quicksand would be a problem made the world feel dangerous, sure, but also mysterious, full of hidden challenges, and full of moments to be a hero. These days, the world's still full of challenges, just fewer opportunities to dramatically escape a sinking sandpit while your friends toss you a conveniently placed vine. But hey, a little nostalgia never hurt anyone.
Trying to fly by jumping off furniture. Okay, you know we have to talk about this one, because every single one of us, at some point in our wild little kid lives, fully believed we could fly if we just tried hard enough. Not in a metaphorical, follow-your-dreams kind of way. I'm talking actual, physical, gravity-defying, take-off-from-your-bed kind of flying. And the launch pad of choice? Furniture. Beds, couches, chairs, tables. If you could climb it, you could conquer the laws of physics. At least, that's what your 6-year-old brain told you. Let me set the scene. It's a regular afternoon. Maybe it's raining outside. You're stuck inside with way too much energy. And suddenly, it hits you. That urge. The undeniable belief that today is the day. Today, you will fly. Maybe you grabbed a blanket, tied it around your neck like a cape, because obviously every good pilot needs a cape. Maybe you put on your superhero pajamas, because those totally increased your aerodynamic abilities. And then, with pure determination, you climbed onto the bed, took a deep breath, and jumped. For those 0.7 seconds in the air, you were soaring. You were majestic. You were Superman, Peter Pan, Buzz Lightyear, take your pick. And then reality set in. Specifically, gravity set in. And the floor had zero sympathy for your dreams. But did that stop you? Of course not. Kids have an unlimited supply of optimism and an extremely short memory for pain. You probably did it over and over again, convinced that if you just flapped your arms faster or jumped a little higher, you'd finally crack the code. It didn't matter how many times you landed on your face or knocked over a lamp, the dream of flight, still alive. And the best part, we truly believed it was possible. Why wouldn't we? Cartoons made it look easy. Superheroes, they took off like it was no big deal.
Even Peter Pan was out here flying around. No plane ticket, no science degree. Just sprinkle some fairy dust, think happy thoughts, and boom, airborne. As kids, we thought, if they can do it, so can I. And honestly, that blind, ridiculous confidence was kind of beautiful. Sure, it defied all logic, but so did most things in childhood. We lived in a world where monsters hid under the bed, floor tiles were lava, and seeds could grow into trees in your stomach. Why wouldn't flying off furniture be real? What's funny, though, is looking back, how hard we've tried to prepare for flight. Remember jumping off the stairs? You'd start small, maybe 2 steps, land. 3 steps, land. 4 steps, okay, wobbly landing, but you made it. And in your mind, this wasn't just reckless fun, it was training. You were preparing for greatness. And let's be real, some of us got creative. Umbrellas as parachutes, classic. Plastic bags as makeshift wings, questionable but ambitious. Cardboard taped to your arms, pure engineering genius. Of course, none of it worked. Unless worked means falling slightly slower before landing in a heap of limbs and giggles. But you know what? It didn't matter. The idea was what counted, the possibility. For those few seconds before the jump, standing on your bed, cape fluttering, eyes focused, you believed you could defy gravity. And isn't that kind of the most innocent, wholesome thing? You weren't worried about failing, getting hurt, looking silly. You just believed. No logic, no science holding you back, just pure, undiluted kid confidence. Fast forward to adulthood, and yeah, reality has definitely kicked in. We know how gravity works. We understand physics now. Jumping off the couch at 30, that's not a flight attempt, that's an ER visit waiting to happen. But deep down, if you're being honest, some small part of you still feels that spark. You watch a superhero movie or see skydivers on TV, and that little voice whispers, "What if?" And sure, maybe you're not climbing the kitchen table and jumping off like you used to, but that belief, that sense of wonder, never totally disappears. Maybe that's why we chase adrenaline as adults. Bungee jumping, skydiving, ziplining, all just grown-up ways to relive those moments from childhood when we thought we could fly. Only now, helmets, safety harnesses, waivers, because apparently adults like to fly, but with insurance. Still, I kind of miss those days when your biggest risk was jumping off the couch with a towel cape and a dream. No paperwork, no physics, just pure imagination and the belief that for one brief, glorious second, you were airborne. So hey, next time you see a kid leap off the couch like they're about to take off, smile. Because that's not just chaos, that's the next generation of dreamers. Training for takeoff, one living room crash landing at a time.
Climbing trees with no fear. All right, tell me I'm not the only one who looks back at childhood tree climbing and wonders, how did I survive that? Because honestly, no fear. Zero hesitation, not an ounce of self-preservation in sight. It's wild to think about now, but back then, if there was a tree, any tree, it wasn't just part of the scenery. It was a challenge, a personal dare, an open invitation from Mother Nature herself saying, "Bet you can't climb me." And we took that bet every single time. It didn't even matter if the tree was technically climbable. Some scrawny little thing with barely there branches, we'd still try. Half the bark falling off didn't faze us. Ants, bees, spiderwebs? Childhood logic. Those things only bite other people, not me. The bravest among us, we go all the way to the top, waving at the world from a wobbly leaf-covered throne like we were kings and queens of the jungle. And that view? Pure magic.
You felt invincible up there, above the ground, above the adults telling you to be careful, above the rules. Just you, the tree, and a dangerously overinflated sense of confidence. The best part? You didn't even need climbing gear. Forget ropes, harnesses, or common sense. All you needed was 2 working limbs and a total disregard for consequences. You'd grab onto the trunk, wedge your foot on some questionable little notch, and just go. Pulling, scrambling, half slipping, branches snapping under your feet. It was basically a survival course, but without the safety instructors. And looking back, some of those branches, sketchy. One wrong move, and it was a 7-foot plummet onto roots, rocks, or your friend's forgotten bicycle lying underneath. But did that stop us? Absolutely not. What's even crazier, we climbed trees for literally no reason. It wasn't like there was a prize at the top, no treasure chest, no secret fort, no rare Pokemon hiding up there. Just leaves. Maybe a bird's nest if you're lucky. And even then, you'd stare at the eggs for a second, feel proud, then immediately start planning how to climb even higher. And the flex of telling your friends, unmatched. I touched the top branch. I climbed higher than Jamie. I almost fell but didn't. Instant playground legend status. But let's talk about the flip side, because every tree climber has that one story, that one terrifying moment where you realized, oh no, how do I get down? Climbing up, easy. Coming back down suddenly felt like mission impossible. You'd cling to the trunk, legs shaking, trying not to look at the 10 feet of empty air below, panic creeping in. Suddenly, your friend's voice from the ground sounded very far away. Just jump, they'd yell, with all the casual confidence of someone not stuck in a tree. Yeah, thanks, Chad. Super helpful. Some of us, we took the leap. Landed in a messy roll, scraped knees, maybe a bruised ego. But, hey, back on solid ground. Others, we waited for rescue. A concerned parent, an older sibling, sometimes even a neighbor with a ladder, all shaking their heads like, why are kids like this? And honestly, great question. But here's the thing. Climbing trees wasn't just about showing off. It was about exploring, testing your limits, feeling brave. For those few minutes perched among the branches, you weren't just a kid. You were an adventurer, a jungle explorer, a lookout for your imaginary pirate crew, a spy on a secret mission. Or, let's be real, you were just trying to escape chores. And the scratches, the bruises, battle scars, proof that you took on the tree and mostly won. As adults, we pass by trees now and barely look up. Too busy, too sensible, too aware of how much a sprained ankle costs. But sometimes, you walk past the good, solid climbing tree. Low branches, sturdy trunk, and that little voice in your head whispers, bet you could still do it. Do you? Probably not. But the fact that your brain even considers it, that's the leftover bravery from childhood. The fearless, slightly reckless tree climber is still hiding somewhere inside you. So yeah, as kids, we climbed trees with no fear. And somehow, despite questionable branches and terrible decision-making skills, most of us made it back down, covered in dirt, scraped up, grinning like absolute maniacs. And you know what? Worth it.
Wearing clothes inside out or mismatched for fun. Ah, yes, childhood fashion, or as I like to call it,
Pure chaos with confidence. You remember this phase, right? The time in life when putting your clothes on the right way was completely optional. Inside out, mismatched socks, pajama shirt with jeans, peak style. Absolute icon behavior. And the best part? You didn't just accidentally dress like this, you did it on purpose. See, when you were little, getting dressed wasn't about rules or fashion magazines. It was pure self-expression. You'd look at that perfectly normal shirt, flip it inside out, admire the seams showing, the tag hanging, and think, yeah, this is a look. And don't even get me started on mismatched outfits. Socks from 2 different planets? Check. Polka dot shirt with striped pants? Obviously. Shoes on the wrong feet? Bonus points. To adults, it looked like you got dressed in the dark during an earthquake. But to you, it was a calculated fashion statement, a rebellious masterpiece. You weren't just breaking fashion rules, you were rewriting them. And remember the reactions? Sometimes your parents tried to intervene. They'd lovingly say things like, "Honey, your shirt's inside out." To which you'd respond with a confident, "I know." End of discussion. Or they'd suggest politely that maybe, just maybe, you were matching socks to school. But you weren't about that life. Matching? Predictable. Chaos? Iconic. Honestly, kids have more raw fashion confidence than most runway models. We strutted into kindergarten with 2 different shoes in the tiara on. Like, yes, I own this look. And honestly, we kind of did. Because deep down, we weren't dressing for anyone else. It wasn't about impressing the cool kids or following trends. It was pure joy, pure fun. A closet full of possibilities and 0 fashion police in sight. And let's be real, sometimes the weird outfits were just pure practicality. Shirt inside out, monster protection. The rough themes kept the scary dreams away. Completely logical, really. Pajamas under your regular clothes? You never know when a nap emergency might strike. Be prepared. Tights over shorts? Superhero uniform, obviously. You weren't walking to school. You were flying there. Looking back now, it's honestly kind of inspiring. As adults, we overthink every outfit. Does this match? Is this appropriate? Will people judge me if I wear socks with sandals? Spoiler alert, yes, but also, who cares? Kids don't have that filter. They wake up, throw on 3 different patterns, a random hat, rain boots on a sunny day, and walk out the door like they're about to walk the Met Gala carpet. And let's not forget, some of these weird outfits, total trendsetters. Decades later, mismatched socks, mainstream. Inside-out fashion, runway approved. Cracks with sacks? Okay, the jury's still out. But the point is, kids know the future. So honestly, part of me misses that fashion freedom. That unapologetic, chaotic creativity. No dress codes, no judgment. Just pure, I like this, so I'm wearing it energy. And sure, maybe now as adults, we have to care a little more. Jobs, weddings, those annoying smart casual events where no one actually knows what to wear. But deep down, I think that fearless little kid in mismatched pajamas and backward hats is still there, waiting for the day you say, "You know what? Today I'm wearing polka dots with stripes again." And when you do, rock it. Because the most stylish thing you can wear, that ridiculous, confident, carefree childhood energy.
Pretending you were invisible with a blanket over your head. Okay, real talk. How many of us truly believed we could turn invisible just by throwing a blanket over our heads? Like, genuinely thought we had achieved stealth mode. It's one of those classic childhood movies that made perfect sense back then. The logic? Flawless. If I can't see you, you can't see me. That's it. That's the entire scientific basis. No loopholes, no questions, perfectly airtight reasoning. You'd be sitting on the couch, sibling creeping up to tag you, and what's your escape plan? Not to run, not to hide behind furniture. Nope, you just throw a blanket over your head and instantly believe you had vanished from existence. Harry Potter's got nothing on us. And the funniest part? When you were under that blanket, you'd stay perfectly still, holding your breath, like that's what made the invisibility work. Because moving, that would totally break the spell. But sitting there like a weird little lump in the middle of the living room, totally invisible, absolutely undetectable. You could feel someone hovering nearby, whispering, "I can see you." And you double down, pull the blanket tighter, squeeze your eyes shut, convinced that they were obviously just bluffing. "You can't see me. I'm under the blanket. Case closed." Honestly, as kids, our understanding of physics was optimistic. We really thought we had unlocked the secret to instant vanishing. Forget technology, forget spy gadgets, just grab your favorite fuzzy blanket and boom, gone. Untouchable. Safe from monsters, safe from siblings, safe from being called to set the table. But let's dig into why this worked so well in our little kid brains. See, children are naturally egocentric thinkers, not in a selfish way, but in the psychological sense. When you're small, you honestly believe the world is seen through your eyes alone. So if you can't see something, clearly it doesn't exist for anyone else. It's the same logic babies use during peekaboo. Cover your eyes, person disappears. Uncover your eyes, person magically reappears. It's object permanence in action, and when you're 4 or 5, you're still kind of learning how that works. So yeah, draping a blanket over your head felt like instant superpowers. You could sneak around, hide in plain sight, or just retreat into your personal, invisible cave where no one could bother you. And remember, it wasn't just a hiding spot. Under the blanket, you had entered another dimension. The world faded away. Everything became muffled, cozy, and slightly too warm. It was your fortress, your spaceship, your secret lab. Sometimes you'd even start talking to yourself under there, plotting imaginary missions, whispering dramatic escape plans. It was the ultimate comfort zone. And on top of that, let's not lie, being under a blanket just felt safe. Like monsters? Totally blanket-proof. There could have been a 12-foot creature standing at the foot of your bed, but if you were under that thin layer of cotton, untouchable. It's almost hilarious how powerful that belief was. Like monsters, ghosts and kidnappers could claw through walls, but Winnie the Pooh blanket was their kryptonite. Honestly, I miss that level of security. As adults, no amount of blankets can shield us from taxes or emails or awkward small talk. But back then, a single blanket equaled problem solved. And let's be real, that blanket didn't have to be fancy. Could have been your regular comforter, a beach towel, maybe even the living room throw that everyone fought over. But the second it went over your head, it transformed into the cloak of invisibility. And the drama of it, when your sibling or parent would pull the blanket off with a big, "Found you," you'd gasp, like, how? You were genuinely shocked that your invisibility had failed. The betrayal, the injustice. But here's the sweetest part. It wasn't really about fooling anyone else. It was about creating your own little bubble, your own space, where you could be silly, quiet, hidden, safe. It was comfort and imagination all rolled up in one soft, warm package. And maybe that's why some of us, even as adults, still love the feeling of bundling under a big, cozy blanket. It's a little leftover magic,
from when we were kids who thought blankets made us invisible. So yeah, we used to pull a blanket over our head and believe we had disappeared. And honestly, maybe for a little while, we kind of did.
Racing to finish your juice box or drink first. Okay, let's talk about one of the most intense, high-stakes competitions of childhood, the Great Juice Box Race. You know what I'm talking about. It's snack time, recess, maybe a family picnic, and suddenly, finishing your drink isn't just about quenching your thirst. It's a race, a full-blown, no-holds-barred survival of the fittest contest. Because for some reason, being the first to finish your juice box meant, what? Bragging rights? Eternal glory? Immortality? Who knows? But it mattered. There you are, tiny hands clutching that flimsy little box of apple juice or orange drink. You jab the straw in with military precision. The second that straw punctured the foil, game on. And suddenly, you're chugging like your life depends on it. Eyes wide, cheeks puffing in and out like some determined hamster, juice disappearing at lightning speed. Meanwhile, you're side-eyeing your siblings or friends. Where are they at? Halfway? Pfft, amateurs. You're the Usain Bolt of Capri Sun. It wasn't just juice. It was victory in liquid form. And let's not ignore the technique. There were levels to this. The true pros, they squeeze the box at just the right moment to force the juice up the straw faster. High risk, high reward. Squeeze too hard, the juice explodes everywhere. Not enough, you fall behind. And don't even get me started on the brain freeze. Oh yeah, we sacrificed comfort for glory. That sharp, ice-cold pain hitting the middle of your forehead, did it slow us down? Absolutely not. It just meant you were winning. Sometimes, halfway through, you'd hear your friend gasp, "Done!" Cue no heartbreak, the crushing defeat. You'd look at your half-full juice box, betrayed, knowing you gave it your all, but Karen over there just set a new record time. Of course, if you finished first, it was victory laps all around. I'm done, loud, proud, victorious. And your friends? Jealous, shook, planning their revenge for the next snack time. But the juice box race wasn't limited to juice. Oh no, it evolved. Slushies? Race. Milk at lunch? Race. Soda at birthday parties? Dangerous, but still a race. The faster you finished, the cooler you were. Why? We'll never know, but it was an unspoken universal rule of childhood. And of course, there were side effects. Like that time you drank so fast you got hiccups that lasted hours. Or when you squeezed the juice box too hard mid-race and sticky apple juice shot up like Old Faithful, all over your shirt, your friend's face, maybe even the floor. Did that stop the race? Absolutely not. Casualties of war. And remember the panic when you finished too fast and realized, wait, that was my only drink. Recess is still going on. And now you're parched, watching your friend sip their juice slowly, smug, hydrated, victorious in a different way. Honestly, this weird little competition says so much about being a kid. Everything, even the most random, everyday stuff, was turned into a game. Boring? Never. Competitive? Always. It wasn't about the juice. It was about testing your limits. About turning snack time into the Olympics. About that unspoken rule that everything could be a competition. Eating, drinking, running to the swings, even blinking contests. And somehow,
It made life fun. Now, as adults, we kinda do this still. Ever race to finish your coffee before a meeting? Chug water at the gym like you're in a hydration championship? Yeah, the juice box energy never leaves. We just upgrade the beverages. And don't lie. If someone next to you starts drinking fast, you still feel that little flicker of competitive spirit. That voice inside you whispers, "Bet I could finish mine first." Some habits never die. So yeah, the great juice box race might have seemed harmless, silly even, but it was training. Training for life's real competitions. Or at least for who could finish their iced latte the fastest.
Making up wild backstories for strangers you saw. Okay, tell me if this sounds familiar. You're a kid walking through the park, sitting in the back seat of your parents' car, or maybe standing in line at the grocery store, and suddenly your brain just goes off. You lock eyes with some random stranger for like 2 seconds, and before you even realize it, you've crafted an entire life story for them. That old man with the long coat and briefcase? Secret spy, no question. Works for the government. Probably has a hidden earpiece and a top-secret mission to stop an international jewel thief. The briefcase? Definitely full of blueprints, or maybe laser gadgets. And the woman walking her dog in sunglasses? Undercover movie star trying to blend in with normal people. She's famous, just hiding. You're basically living in a James Bond movie and nobody else has noticed. And the teenager with the bright blue hair sitting alone at the bus stop? Obviously, they're a runaway royalty from some secret kingdom, exiled because they didn't want to marry some boring prince. Now they're here, living a quiet life, hiding their true identity. Our kid brains absolutely thrived on this. It wasn't enough to just see a stranger and think, oh, there's a person. Nope. We had to turn it into an entire soap opera, complete with drama, mystery, danger, sometimes even magic. It was like every stranger was a character, and we were the writers. And what's hilarious is that sometimes you'd believe these made-up stories so hard, you'd almost forget they weren't real. You'd walk past a construction worker and think, construction, that's his cover. By night, he's a dragon hunter. Or see a grumpy-looking lady at the checkout and decide, yep, villain. Absolute villain energy. She's definitely the evil queen in disguise. And the best part? Nobody could tell you otherwise. Reality, facts, who needs them? You had imagination, and that was way more fun. And don't even get me started on airports. Airports were like a gold mine for this game. Thousands of people, all rushing around with luggage and stressed faces. Perfect for crafting dramatic origin stories. That guy in the business suit? Secret agent on a mission. The tired-looking family with 3 kids? International explorers coming back from an ancient tomb. The nervous woman pacing near Gate 7? Probably running away from a wedding. Maybe even a spy herself. Your imagination was basically working overtime. And here's the thing. As weird as it seems now, that little habit? Totally normal. In fact, psychologists call it something like narrative projection. Basically, our brains love creating stories. It's how we make sense of the world. As kids, everything feels huge and mysterious. Adults, strangers, even the guy selling ice cream, they all seem to know stuff we didn't. So, naturally, we filled in the blanks. We turned that mystery into excitement, into fantasy. It made everyday life way more interesting. Think about it. Standing in line at the bank. Boring. But standing in line behind a retired treasure hunter who's now laying low after one last big score? Now that makes your day like a movie. And you know what? Even as adults, we kinda still do this. You ever sit in a cafe, sipping your coffee, watching people walk by, and suddenly your brain whispers, bet that guy's running from the law. Or, that woman is definitely a millionaire pretending to be normal. Yeah, see? The habit never really left. We just got quieter about it. But deep down, still storytellers. It's honestly kind of wholesome when you think about it. We didn't judge strangers in a mean way. We made them interesting. Everyone was a potential hero, or villain, or secret wizard, or undercover alien. The possibilities, endless. And sometimes you'd even root for these made-up strangers. Like you'd see a sad-looking person on the bus and invent this whole tragic backstory. They lost their dog. Their evil boss fired them. But you know what? They're going to bounce back. They're going to train, get revenge, maybe meet the love of their life, and it'll all turn around. And you're just casually watching the prologue of their life story unfold, like some omniscient narrator. And the wildest part? You never even talk to these people. You never know their real story, but your version? Way more fun. Also, anyone else do this with teachers? Teachers were a gold mine for the secret backstories. Your math teacher? Double life as a superhero. The grumpy principal? Obviously an ex-wizard who lost their powers and took a job at the school to stay close to magic. Your sweet old librarian? Retired pirate captain with a hidden treasure buried under the library. We believed it so hard that regular life seemed like a giant mystery, and we were this close to uncovering the truth. It made even the most ordinary days feel like an adventure. And honestly, don't we all kind of miss that? Life was never boring when your imagination was running wild, turning every stranger into a character, every street corner into the setting for a secret mission. Adults would tell you to focus or stop daydreaming, but come on, where's the fun in that? And real talk, wouldn't life be better if we brought that back a little? Next time you're at the airport, or sitting in traffic, or bored in a waiting room, just try it. Make up a wild, ridiculous, over-the-top backstory for the person next to you. Trust me, your day gets way more entertaining. And who knows? Maybe some of those stories aren't even that far from the truth.
Having imaginary friends. Okay, let's talk about one of the most classic, most adorably weird childhood habits that honestly had all of us acting like we were starring in our own psychological thriller. Imaginary friends. Yep. Those invisible, completely made-up buddies that followed you everywhere, kept you company, and made your parents wonder just a little bit if they should be concerned. But hey, if you didn't have at least one imaginary friend as a kid, were you even doing childhood right? And the best part, it wasn't always just one. Some of us, we had entire squads, a whole made-up universe of invisible friends with names, personalities, birthdays, favorite colors. Basically, your brain just built a secret society and you were the leader. You'd be walking around the house like, "Don't sit there, Mom, that's where Captain Sparkleface is sitting." Or eating dinner at the table, making sure there was an extra chair for your invisible pal. And your parents, they just rolled with it. Or they got mildly freaked out, depending on how intense your imaginary friend lore was. Some kids had friendly, sweet, imaginary friends, like a magical unicorn that followed them everywhere. Or a tiny fairy that whispered secrets and helped them feel brave. Cute, wholesome, all good. Other kids, total chaos. Imaginary pirates, talking dinosaurs, shape-shifting dragons. Your childhood bedroom was basically a blockbuster movie happening in your head. And let's not pretend it always made sense. Your imaginary friend could be a cat one day, a secret agent the next, and sometimes it was just you, but with cooler clothes and better comebacks. Yeah, we basically made upgraded versions of ourselves to hang out with.
Why? Because we could. And get this, psychologists actually say this is super normal. Like, imaginary friends, they're not a sign you're weird or destined to lose touch with reality. They're actually proof that your brain was flexing its creative muscle hard. It's called role-play imagination. Helps kids process emotions, practice social skills, and navigate situations they don't totally understand yet. Basically, your brain was training for real life, but with way more sparkles, dragons, and dramatic plot twists. And it wasn't just a casual thing either. Your imaginary friends, they had rules, they had boundaries, they had drama. You ever get mad at your imaginary friend? Oh, that was peak childhood acting right there. Storming off, crossing your arms, yelling into thin air like, "Fine, don't talk to me then, Mr. McGiggles." And your parents are in the kitchen like, "Should we be worried?" Nope, just healthy emotional processing with extra flair. And don't even get me started on how loyal these imaginary friends were. Bad day at school? They had your back. Scared of the dark? They were your invisible bodyguards. Feeling lonely? Instant company. And they never judged you. Didn't matter if you wore socks on your hands and declared yourself king of the living room. They were there for it. Your weirdness, their favorite thing. And for some of us, these imaginary friends stuck around for years. They weren't just a phase. They were your go-to squad, your sidekicks, your backup singers in the shower. They lived in your stories, your games, your little made-up adventures. And honestly, sometimes those imaginary friends were kind of smarter than we gave them credit for. They helped you solve arguments, practice conversations, even work through scary stuff. It's like your brain invented a friend designed to make life less confusing. Clever little brain, right? And let's not lie, imaginary friends also gave you an unbeatable excuse when things went wrong. Who broke the lamp? Not you. It was Detective Snuffles, obviously. Who ate the last cookie? Oh, sorry, that was Princess Bubblegum. Who scribbled on the wall? Definitely the ghost that lives under the stairs. Not your fault. Look, was it dishonest? A little. But was it creative? Absolutely. And as we got older, those imaginary friends, they kinda faded. Life got busy. School got harder. Suddenly, your invisible buddies got replaced by homework, real friends, and let's be honest, way too much screen time. But deep down, that same wild, ridiculous imagination, it's still there. Maybe it shows up now when you daydream, or when you overthink a text message and invent 20 possible scenarios, or when you lie awake at night narrating your life like it's a movie. Yeah, imaginary friends just evolved. They turned into your inner voice, your overthinking, your little mental pep talks. And honestly, isn't that kind of cool? That part of you, that creative, playful, make-believe part, never really disappeared. It just grew up with you. And hey, who says adults can't have imaginary friends? We call it writing fiction now. Or role-playing games. Or even just talking to ourselves in the car like we're on a podcast. The adult world is basically full of socially acceptable ways to still be that imaginative kid. We just package it differently. So, shout out to all the invisible sidekicks, talking animals, and imaginary superheroes from our childhoods. They made life more fun, helped us get through the scary bits,
And honestly, probably made us a little braver, a little weirder, and a lot more creative.
Writing your name everywhere for no reason. Okay, be honest with me. How many walls, notebooks, desks, or honestly random objects in your childhood world had your name scribbled on them? Because if you are anything like most kids, the answer is all of them. Your name? It wasn't just your name. It was basically your personal logo, your brand, your mark on the world, literally. And you slapped that thing on everything. School notebooks, property of me. Walls? Whoops, guess that's permanent now. The back of your hand? Classic. Temporary tattoo, courtesy of your trusty blue pen. Tables, chairs, windowsills, sometimes even your toys had your name scrawled on them, like you were preparing for some weird toy custody battle. Why did we do this? Honestly, no one knows. We just felt like the world needed to know I was here, like some tiny, chaotic graffiti artist claiming territory wherever we went. And don't even get me started on the different styles we developed. It wasn't enough to just write your name normally. Oh no, you had to design it. Bubble letters? Obviously. Hearts over the eyes? Required. Swirly, dramatic cursive? You thought you were basically calligraphy royalty. And you practiced it over and over, page after page. Your name in every possible font style your 7-year-old brain could invent. It was like your first introduction to graphic design, fueled entirely by boredom and way too much access to markers. Some of us even had signature phases, like suddenly your name had to be in all caps, or with a star at the end, or with that weird S shape that every kid somehow learned to draw, you know the one, the cool S. No one knows where it came from, it just existed. Passed down from generation to generation like some ancient mystical symbol of kid culture. And once you mastered it, boom, straight into your name signature, like you were tagging your locker in a street art competition. And let's be real, there was definitely a rebellious thrill to it, like writing your name somewhere you weren't supposed to. Ooh, instant adrenaline. Your heart's racing, you're giggling, you know you're pushing the limits, but you have to do it. Desk at school? Name's going there. Bathroom stall? Boom. Signature placement. Library book? Oops. Okay, that one maybe crossed the line, but hey, you were a kid. It was almost like you were leaving little time capsules behind. Like 20 years from now, someone's going to find that desk, see your crooked, bubble-lettered name carved into the corner, and they'll know a legend once sat here. And of course, teachers and parents were always baffled by this behavior. Why would you ruin your desk like that? Why did you write your name on the wall? Meanwhile, you're standing there like, obviously, so everyone knows it's my desk. It made perfect sense in your head. But let's peel back the layers a little bit, because there's actually some sweet psychology behind this weird little habit. Turns out, kids writing their name everywhere, it's about ownership. It's one of the first ways you assert your identity in the world. It's your little brain saying, hey, I exist, I matter. This space, I was part of it. It's kind of wholesome when you're not defacing property. And for some of us, it wasn't just our names. We started adding doodles, symbols, inside jokes no one else understood. It evolved from just writing your name into a full-blown art form. Next thing you know, your school notebooks look like the walls of a very creative prison. And let's not pretend we outgrew it entirely. Fast forward to adulthood. People still do it, just sneakier. We tag things online. Instagram handles on photos, our names on Starbucks cups, sometimes intentionally misspelled for the drama. Gamer tags, usernames. We're still out here marking our little corners of the world with our identity. We've just gone digital. And hey, who hasn't doodled their name absent-mindedly during a boring meeting? You're in a Zoom call, half listening, and suddenly your notepad is filled with fancy versions of your own name. It's muscle memory at this point. Deep down, your inner kid is still there, holding a pen, grinning mischievously, ready to slap their name on everything. So yeah, writing your name everywhere as a kid, kinda weird, kinda pointless, but also kinda beautiful. It was your first little rebellion, your first little expression of identity, your first quiet way of saying, I'm here, I matter. This space, I was part of it. It's kinda wholesome when you're not defacing property. And for some of us, it wasn't just our names. We started adding doodles, simples, inside jokes no one else understood. It evolved from just writing your name into a full-blown art form. Next thing you know, your school notebooks look like the walls of a very creative prison. And let's not pretend we outgrew it entirely. Fast forward to adulthood. People still do it, just sneakier. We tag things online now. Instagram handles on photos. Our names on Starbucks cups, sometimes intentionally misspelled for the drama. Gamer tags, usernames. We're still out here marking our little corners of the world with our identity. We've just gone digital. And hey, who hasn't doodled their name absent-mindedly during a boring meeting? You're in a Zoom call, half listening, and suddenly your notepad is filled with fancy versions of your own name. It's muscle memory at this point. Deep down, your inner kid is still there, holding a pen, grinning mischievously, ready to slap their name on everything. So yeah, writing your name everywhere as a kid, kinda weird, kinda pointless, but also kinda beautiful. It was your first little rebellion, your first little expression of identity, your first quiet way of saying, I'm here, I matter, this space, I was part of it. And honestly, the world's a little more fun with those scribbles left behind, even if your parents had to repaint the walls later.
Watching the same movie or show on repeat. Okay, tell me you didn't do this as a kid. Actually, don't tell me. I already know you did. You, my friend, were the walking, talking, pint-sized version of Netflix's "Are you still watching?" prompt. Except the answer was always yes. You have that one movie, that one show, and you could not stop. It didn't matter how many times you'd seen it, start to finish, word for word, song for song, scene for scene. It didn't matter if your parents were begging for mercy in the background. I swear if I hear that theme song one more time, you didn't care. That DVD, that VHS, that YouTube playlist, on repeat, forever. For some of us, it was Frozen. You single-handedly kept Let It Go stuck in your family's heads for 2 solid years. For others, it was Finding Nemo, or Toy Story, or The Lion King, or Bluey, Dora, Teletubbies, Power Rangers, Barney, you name it. We had our thing, and it was basically our whole personality. But let's zoom out for a second. Ever wonder why kids do this? Why your 6-year-old brain was like, I've seen this movie 34 times already. Better watch it again. Well, turns out it's actually kind of wholesome. Rewatching stuff gives kids a sense of comfort. It's familiar, predictable, safe. When you're tiny and the whole world feels overwhelming and confusing, that movie you love, it's your cozy little escape hatch. Plus, repetition actually helps kids learn. They notice details they missed the first time and memorize lines, songs, jokes. It's how we figured out the words to songs way before we could read.
And don't pretend like you weren't low-key proud of yourself for knowing every single line. There's no power trip quite like confidently mouthing along with an entire movie, or singing every lyric while your exhausted parents silently question their life choices. It also gave us that weird kid confidence. In your head, you were basically part of the movie. Like, if Woody and Buzz needed backup, you were ready. If Simba needed another lion cub sidekick, you were available. If the Blues Clues guy asked for help solving the puzzle, you were practically the co-host at this point. And don't even get me started on the meltdowns when someone tried to interrupt your sacred ritual. Oh no, honey, we've seen that already today. Yeah? And? Play it again. Maybe something new this time. No, absolutely not. You wanted your favorite scene, your favorite lines, your favorite songs, exactly how they were every single time. And honestly, that obsession never really left us, did it? We grow up suddenly, we're adults, rewatching Friends, The Office, Breaking Bad, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, or whatever your comfort show is, over and over. Same jokes, same plot twists, still hits every time, somehow still satisfying. It's that same little brain from childhood, just in a grown-up body, saying, yeah, life's chaotic, but this I understand. And hey, let's be real. You probably remember weirdly specific lines from your childhood obsession. Quote them at random, hum the songs in your head, get weirdly nostalgic when you see the DVD cover or hear the theme song. Those shows and movies weren't just background noise. They were little time capsules, little anchors in your day, a guaranteed happy place when you needed one. Sure, your parents were probably one more viewing away from a complete breakdown, but for you, watching the same movie on repeat, that was childhood magic. Simple, repetitive, predictable, and honestly, pretty awesome.
Telling people your age with and a half included. All right, picture this. You're at the playground. Some random grown-up asks, "So, how old are you?" And without skipping a beat, you proudly announce, "I'm 6.5." Because that half year, that wasn't just a number. It was your entire personality. It was status. It was proof that you were practically an adult. And if you were really advanced, you didn't stop at halves. You broke it down even further. "I'm 6.75." Whoa, slow down, Einstein. Don't overwhelm us with your advanced mathematics. But in your kid brain, it made perfect sense. Those 6 extra months, they meant everything. In fact, you didn't just age, you leveled up. You were older, wiser, taller, more mature, in theory. And honestly, it was kind of hilarious because adults never do that. You never hear a grown man say, "Yeah, I'm 43.5, or "Just turned 29.75, thanks for asking." It's strictly a kid thing. But why? Why were we so obsessed with fractions of our age? Turns out, when you're little, every second counts. Think about it. When you've only been alive for 5 or 6 years, 6 months feels like an eternity. It's a significant chunk of your entire life. It's the difference between being a little kid and being one of the big kids at school. Between needing help tying your shoes and being able to do it all by yourself, mostly. between riding the baby swings and launching yourself off the big kid swings like a backyard stunt performer. And let's not forget the sibling rivalry that came with it. If you had an older sibling, you used that half year like a weapon. Sure, they were 8, but you were 6.5. So obviously you were catching up. In your mind, you were basically equals now. Same thing with your friends. You'd size each other up on the playground. How old are you? 7. I'm 6.5. Ah, yes, the universal language of childhood competitiveness. A half year wasn't just numbers, it was street cred. And birthdays? Oh boy. Birthdays were basically the Olympics of age announcements. The second the clock struck midnight on your birthday, your age is updated immediately. None of this, technically I'm still 5 until my party nonsense. You were 6, officially. New number, new you. But here's the plot twist. Once you hit adulthood, that and a half energy completely disappears. In fact, we go in the opposite direction. We round down. Oh, I'm still 29. Technically, you've been 29 for 3 years now, but hey, we won't mention it. Suddenly, we're not racing to add fractions to our age. We're trying to freeze time. But kids are racing to grow up, to be older, to prove they're not just 5, they're 5.5. And let's be honest, part of that mindset was adorable. It was pure. That half year wasn't about stress or deadlines. It was about pride, excitement, possibility. Because every extra month meant new adventures, new milestones. Maybe you could ride your bike without training wheels. Or finally go on the big rides at the amusement park. Or let's be real, just stay up 10 extra minutes past bedtime. So yeah, as a kid, that and a half mattered. It made you feel seen. It made you feel important. It made you feel like you were inching closer to the mystical, all-powerful land of being grown up. And now, well, we kind of miss that energy, don't we? When getting older felt exciting, not exhausting. But hey, next time someone asks how old you are, try it. Say your age and a half. See how it feels. But your inner 6-year-old will be grinning from ear to ear.
Biting or chewing pencils, erasers, or random objects? Be honest. How many pencils did you ruin in elementary school? Don't lie. We all did it. The chewed up ends, the gnawed erasers, the poor mangled plastic pen caps. Your school supplies looked like they'd been through a survival situation. And technically, they kinda had. They survived you. And the wild part? Most of the time, you didn't even realize you were doing it. You'd be sitting there in class, totally zoning out. Teacher rambling about math or history or whatever. And suddenly, crunch! You're halfway through eating your pencil. It wasn't even about hunger. You didn't want to eat the thing. It was a reflex, a nervous habit, a weird little fidget that kept your brain busy while your body stayed still. And let's not pretend it stopped with pencils. Erasers? Yup. Plastic pen caps? Absolutely. The string on your hoodie? Destroyed. Your backpack zipper pull? Torn to shreds. Those little rubber ends of your shoelaces? Gone. Anything within reach, fair game for chewing. But why did we do this? Turns out, it's actually super common for kids, and even adults, to develop these little oral fixations. Chewing, biting, nibbling, It's basically a self-soothing mechanism, kind of like a stress ball, but with your teeth. When you're a kid, your body's still figuring out how to manage anxiety, boredom, or concentration. Chewing on stuff, it gives your brain a little sensory feedback. It helps you focus. It helps you chill out. It's weirdly satisfying. And let's be real, half the time, those erasers or pencil ends were just right there. Convenient. Chewable. Apparently edible, even though they definitely weren't. Of course, your teacher, not impressed. Your parents, mildly horrified. Your dentist, silently weeping. Especially if you were one of the hardcore kids who went full gremlin mode on your pencils. The wood splintered, the paint chipped, the eraser looked like it had been mauled by a raccoon. And yet, you just kept chewing. Some kids even leveled up to chewing random objects at home. Remote controls? Nod. Headphone wires? Frayed. Your own shirt color? Perpetually soggy. Looking back, it's honestly kind of hilarious. Your school desk probably had a whole ecosystem of chewed up supplies. You'd trade pencils with a friend, only to realize theirs was basically a biohazard covered in teeth marks. Instant regret. And let's not forget that one kid who accidentally bit through an entire eraser in class, or chewed on the end of a marker, only to realize it wasn't capped properly and their tongue turned bright blue for the rest of the day. Iconic. But hey, chewing stuff wasn't just a kid thing. Even as adults, we see it all the time. People biting pens during meetings, chewing on straws at restaurants, gnawing on their phone case while waiting in line. It's low-key kinda human nature. A leftover habit from childhood that never fully left. Of course, as we get older, we usually find slightly healthier fidgets, stress balls, fidget cubes, chewing gum, thankfully not the 7-year stomach kind. We'll get to that myth later. But deep down, the urge to chew random objects, still there. Tamed, but lurking. So yeah, if you were a pencil biter, an eraser chewer, a pen cap destroyer, congratulations. You were just part of the universal, mildly destructive club of childhood stress management. And honestly, we probably kept Office Depot in business for years.
Mimicking your parents' conversations or phone calls. Picture this. You're like 7 years old, sitting at home. Maybe your mom's on the phone. Maybe your dad's pacing the kitchen, Bluetooth earpiece in, talking about taxes, work, something extremely adult that makes absolutely no sense to you. And what do? You copy them. Word for word, tone for tone. Hand gestures? Check. Exaggerated sighs? Absolutely. Random serious nodding like you actually understand what insurance premium means? Nailed it. It's like your brain sees an adult, talking all confident, pacing the room, and your inner child is like, I can do that. Watch me. Suddenly, you're holding the TV remote like it's a phone, or your plastic toy phone, you know, the one with the huge, colorful buttons that made no actual calls but made you feel very important. You strut around the house, channeling your inner CEO, muttering nonsense like, yeah, circle back, synergy, totally, yeah, we'll get that squared away by Friday.
You had no idea what any of it meant, but the vibe? Immaculate. Or maybe it wasn't the phone thing. Maybe you just mimicked their conversations in general. Your mom arguing with the neighbor, you in the backyard reenacting the whole drama with Barbie dolls. Dad ranting about the car repair shop, you in your bedroom lecturing your stuffed animals like, "Listen, Teddy, they overcharged me for the oil change. It's outrageous." It wasn't just copying, it was full-blown, Academy Award-winning impression work. Little you, eavesdropping, absorbing the adult world, and recreating it with Legos, dolls, or action figures. And the funny part? As a kid, you thought you were being subtle, invisible. But the adults, oh, they saw you. They heard you mumbling nonsense into your pretend phone, gesturing dramatically in the mirror, and they probably just smiled and thought, "Yep, mini-me in training." But why did we do this? Turns out it's actually developmental psychology 101. Kids learn through imitation. It's how we decode the world. We see adults do important things, talking on the phone, making decisions, handling serious adult business, and naturally we copy it. It's like a rehearsal for being a grown-up, except way funnier. And here's a wild detail. Research shows that kids as young as 2 years old will imitate not just actions, but the intention behind the actions. Meaning, little you weren't just copying how your mom talked on the phone. You were copying the fact that she looked busy, powerful, and in control. Even if your version of important conversation was, yes, the dinosaurs need more cookies. Roger that. It gets even better. Some kids, maybe you were one, took it to the next level. Not just copying tones, but copying phrases. Adult phrases that made no sense to a child but sounded incredibly official. Like, "Let's circle back on that." Or, "We'll touch base later." Or that iconic dad line, "Money doesn't grow on trees." You had no idea what it meant, but you repeated it with full confidence, maybe even scolding your teddy bear for overspending his imaginary allowance. Honestly, it was the ultimate mix of comedy and cuteness. And real talk, some of us never really grew out of it. Ever catch yourself on the phone now, suddenly pacing the room, using all those weird adult phrases you mocked as a kid? It happens. It creeps in. The legacy lives on. So yeah, next time you see a kid walking around with a plastic phone, hand on their hip, looking deadly serious, saying, "Yeah, I'll email you the spreadsheet," just know they're doing exactly what you did. Mini adults rehearsing for the chaos that is grown-up life. Wearing superhero capes made of towels. Okay, picture this. You just got out of the bath, your hair's still dripping. Mom or dad hands you a towel, but instead of drying off like a sensible person, boom, that towel is now a superhero cape. You drape it around your shoulders, tuck it in the front of your shirt, tie it up, or clip it with a clothespin if you're really fancy, and suddenly, you're not just a soggy kid in pajamas. You're super you. The hallway, your runway. The living room, your secret lair. The couch, clearly the rooftop of a skyscraper you just leaped onto to stop an imaginary villain.
And honestly, wasn't there something about that towel? The second it hit your back, you felt invincible. Like physics, gravity, basic human limitations? Irrelevant. Because with a towel cape, the possibilities were endless. You probably ran through the house, arms outstretched, making those classic superhero sound effects. Whoosh! Swish! And of course, the dramatic landing, bam! Which, let's be real, was just you jumping onto the couch and knocking over a lamp. The best part? It didn't even matter what kind of towel it was. Fancy beach towel? Old kitchen towel? Random ratty bathroom towel? As long as it flowed behind you when you ran, instant superpowers. And let's be honest, most of us didn't even have a clear superhero identity. It wasn't like you were specifically Superman or Batman. You were some vague original character, like Towel Man or Super Me. No backstory, no origin story, just vibes and a deep commitment to justice and maybe annoying your siblings. Now, why did we all do this? Turns out there's actual psychology behind the towel cape phenomenon. Kids are wired for imaginative play. It's how we process the world. When you tie on that towel, you're not just playing dress-up. You're exploring bravery, confidence, and the fantasy of being powerful. In a world where everything feels out of your control, pretending to fly? Total empowerment move. There's even a name for this kind of thing. It's called symbolic play, where an ordinary object, like a towel, becomes something completely different in your imagination. Experts say it boosts creativity, problem solving, and even emotional development. So technically, wearing that towel cape, you were training your brain. While also, leaping off the couch and nearly breaking your arm. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't all about being a superhero. Sometimes the towel cape wasn't about saving the world, it was about escaping it. For 5 glorious minutes, you weren't stuck doing chores or homework. You were soaring over skyscrapers, dodging lasers, rescuing puppies from burning buildings, living your best, most dramatic life. And hey, admit it, part of you, even now, sees a big flowing towel and thinks, I could still pull off the superhero look. But adult life has you too busy folding laundry or paying bills. Still, deep down, that little superhero is in there, waiting, towel ready, just in case the world needs saving, or you need to feel awesome for a second.
Making sound effects for literally everything. Let me just ask you this. Were you really walking around the house as a kid if you weren't making your own sound effects the whole time? Be honest. You pushed open the door. Geek! You picked up a pretend laser blaster. Pew, pew, pew! You hopped off the couch dramatically. Dum! And walking anywhere, forget it. It wasn't just footsteps. It was a full-blown action sequence. It's actually hilarious when you think about it. Kids, we basically had an invisible sound design team. But we were the sound design team. Need engine noises? Vroom. Helicopter landing? Chup, 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 chup. Sneaking around the house? Cue exaggerated ninja footsteps. Dun dun dun. Everything had its own soundtrack. Spoons clinking in a cereal bowl? Suddenly, it's a treasure hunt. A paper towel roll? Obviously, a telescope. Or a rocket launcher. Or both. Depends on your mood. And of course, jumping off anything higher than one stair, you had to shout, "Oh!" followed by a perfectly timed landing sound. But let's be real, it wasn't always logical. You'd walk to the fridge, and suddenly your mouth is like, psh, boom, for no reason. It wasn't even part of a game. Your brain just went, hey, silence is boring. Add some explosions. And the best part, you didn't even notice you were doing it. It was like your mouth had a mind of its own. Your brain said, open drawer. You mouthed at it, click. Totally involuntary. Totally amazing. Now, you ever wonder why we did that? Turns out, it's a real psychological thing. Kids making sound effects, it's all about active imagination and sensory learning. When your brain's still figuring out the world, adding sound effects helps bring your little pretend scenarios to life. It makes pretend play feel more real. And honestly, it helps process how the world actually works. Think about it. When a door creaks in real life, creepy, right? When you made the door creak with your mouth, you were in control. You were mastering your environment. Tiny sound engineer in the making. Plus, scientists say this kind of play boosts language development, storytelling skills, and even confidence. So while your parents might have been rolling their eyes, secretly, you were building communication superpowers. But let me ask you this. Have you ever accidentally done it now? You open the fridge as an adult and quietly, under your breath, psh. Or you unlocked your car and whisper, beep, beep. Yeah, it sneaks up on you. Those sound effect habits, they die hard. And don't even get me started if you're playing video games now, because half the fun, still making sound effects with your mouth like you're 5 years old again. Admit it. You do it. I do it. We all do it. And it's glorious. So here's to you, walking through life like your own personal movie. Explosions, laser noises, dramatic footsteps, all included. No subscription required.
Catching raindrops on your tongue. First of all, let me set the scene. You're outside. The sky's all gray and dramatic. The rain starts falling. That light drizzle at first. The grown-ups, they're sprinting for cover. Umbrellas popping open, mom yelling, "You'll catch a cold!" But you step right into the rain like you own the place. And what do? You tilt your head back, stick out your tongue, and stand there, mouth wide open, catching raindrops like they're the world's weirdest free snack. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 drops. No. You stood there for ages, letting the rain plop onto your tongue, feeling like you were part of nature, like some wild forest creature, or one of those cartoon animals you saw on TV, gracefully sipping water from leaves. Except in reality, you probably looked like a confused baby bird or a malfunctioning garden statue. But hey, didn't stop you. Now, let's be honest. Did the rain even taste like anything? Not really. It was basically flavorless sky water. But in your mind, that stuff was magic. It was like the freshest, purest drink ever, straight from the clouds. Totally natural, totally cool, totally unsupervised. Of course, the adults had to ruin it. There was always that one grown-up yelling, "Don't drink rainwater, it's dirty." And yeah, okay, they technically weren't wrong. Depending where you lived, that rain probably wasn't the cleanest thing to chug down like a 5-star beverage. But at the time, did you care? Absolutely not. You weren't worried about pollution. You were out there living your best life, feeling the rain hit your cheeks, catching the occasional rogue drop in your eye, jumping in puddles, and of course, savoring that classic, questionable rainwater buffet. And I bet, even now, if it starts to rain, like a nice, light summer rain, some tiny, rebellious part of you still thinks about sticking your tongue out. You probably stop yourself because, you're adulting. But the thought? It's there. But fun fact, catching raindrops on your tongue is basically a universal kid instinct. Kids everywhere do it. It's not even a cultural thing. It's like programmed into childhood DNA. Rain falls equals open mouth. It's science. Okay, maybe not officially, but you get the idea. Actually, speaking of science, ever wonder how clean rain really is? Here's the quick, fun explanation. Rain starts as water vapor way up in the sky. It condenses into clouds. Eventually, those droplets get heavy and fall as rain. In theory, that water is super clean. But as it falls through the atmosphere, it can pick up dust, pollution, and other stuff floating around. So yeah, your parents weren't totally overreacting. Rain isn't bottled spring water. But hey, when you're 6 years old, dodging puddles and living for the moment, hygiene is optional. And wasn't there something oddly peaceful about it? The quiet sound of the rain, the cool drops on your skin, your tongue sticking out like you were the official rain taste tester. It was simple, messy, silly, but so satisfying. So tell me, when was the last time you caught a raindrop on your tongue? Or are you officially too grown up for that now? Or just secretly waiting for the next warm summer storm?
Believing swallowing gum meant it stayed in your stomach for 7 years. You're sitting there, chewing gum, probably the bright pink bubblegum kind that tasted amazing for exactly 4 minutes before turning into a weird, rubbery chunk. And then, disaster strikes. Maybe you laughed too hard. Maybe you talked with your mouth full. Classic rookie move. Or maybe your friend bumped you mid-chew. And the gum? Down the hatch. Gone. Vanished. And the panic? Immediate. Suddenly, your brain is screaming, oh no, I just swallowed gum, that's it, I'm doomed. That gum's gonna live in my stomach for 7 years. 7 whole years. As a kid, that sounded like a life sentence. You imagine that sticky neon blob just hanging out inside your body forever, maybe floating around your belly like some weird science experiment. You even wondered, could it grow? Could it stick to other food? Was your stomach gonna turn into a giant wad of hubba bubba? And the worst part, it wasn't like adults were in any hurry to correct you. In fact, they loved leaning into that myth. They'd say things like, "Yup, that gum's stuck in there now." Or, "Guess your stomach's gonna be minty fresh for the next decade." Terrifying, but weirdly, kinda cool. Like, sure, your insides were a chewing gum graveyard, but hey, at least it was bubblegum flavored. Now here's where it gets interesting. Let's talk real science for a sec. Swallowing gum, not ideal, but your body, it's actually pretty amazing at dealing with stuff. See, gum is made of a chewy base that your body can't really digest, but that doesn't mean it just camps out in your stomach for 7 years like it's on vacation. Nope. Your digestive system does its thing. It breaks down whatever parts of the gum it can, usually the flavor, sweeteners, that kind of thing. And the rest, it exits the natural way. Same as everything else. No 7-year lease, no gum colony forming in your belly. Just in, out, done. Doctors say swallowing gum occasionally, not a big deal. Constantly swallowing huge amounts? Okay, that could cause problems like blockages, but honestly, you'd have to be chewing and swallowing gum like it's your full-time job. One accidental gulp, you're fine. But let's be real. Even now, there's that tiny paranoid part of your brain whispering, what if they were right though? Because that childhood myth was drilled into you. And honestly, it made gum way more dramatic than it needed to be. Bubble gum wasn't just candy, it was a potential internal time capsule. Also, can we talk about how this myth kinda gave gum an almost forbidden, dangerous vibe? Like chewing it in class already felt rebellious. Swallowing it? Ultimate bad kid energy. But mostly, it just left you mildly terrified every time your gum accidentally slipped down your throat. And I bet you did that thing too. When the second you accidentally swallowed it, you'd panic and start drinking water like crazy, as if you could flush the gum out. Spoiler, it didn't help. But hey, worth a try. So bottom line, the 7-year gum myth, total nonsense. But it stuck around, pun fully intended, because, well, it made a funny, weird little part of childhood even more ridiculous. Now be honest, when's the last time you swallowed gum and paused for a second, like, well, guess I'll see that again in 2031?
Drawing smiley faces on steamed up mirrors. You're fresh out of the shower, or maybe your parents just finished their own, and the entire bathroom looks like a fog machine exploded in there. The mirror? Completely useless. A blank, steamy canvas. And what does your kid brain immediately think? Art time. It starts small, usually the classic smiley face. 2 dots for eyes, big old goofy curve for a mouth, and for some reason, it felt like the most satisfying thing ever. Did it matter that the mirror was meant for, brushing your teeth or fixing your hair? Absolutely not. This was your moment to shine as a temporary graffiti artist. And it never stopped at one smiley face, did it? Oh no, you kept going. Hearts? Stars? Your name? Maybe your crush's name inside a heart if you were feeling bold. Or mysterious messages like, hi, or help, just to freak out the next person using the bathroom. And the best part? The disappearing act. Draw your masterpiece, wait a few minutes, poof, gone. Like some magical, invisible ink. Unless you really pressed your finger in hard, then the outline stuck around for days. Honestly, it made you feel like some kind of undercover agent leaving secret codes. Or like a magician who could make art vanish into thin air. All thanks to basic condensation. Want to nerd out for a sec? Let me hit you with science. When you shower, that warm, steamy air hits the cooler surface of the mirror. The water vapor in the air condenses, basically turns back into tiny water droplets, and bam! Foggy mirror. When you use your finger to draw, you wipe away those little droplets, leaving a temporary clear spot behind. Simple, weirdly fun, and completely harmless. Now, as a kid, it felt like advanced technology or secret powers, like you were the only person smart enough to unlock this foggy wonderland. Truth is, literally every kid did it. Every single one. And here's the thing, some of us can't resist. Admit it, you're an adult now, but if you walk into a fogged up bathroom and the mirror is totally blank, your finger starts twitching. You want to draw. It's instinct. It's practically a reflex at this point. Smiley face, little heart, maybe a cheeky hello to the next unsuspecting victim. And yeah, your more mature adult self knows it's silly, but your inner child? Proud, very proud. Also, can we talk about how serious you got with the fog art competitions? If you had siblings, forget it. You were battling for prime mirror real estate. Hey, you messed up my drawing. No, you wiped out my heart. Total chaos. The mirror was basically your sibling battleground. And then, I guarantee this happened, you discovered the full hand swipe, the nuclear option. One giant hand swiped, and the entire mirror was semi-clear. Your doodles? Gone. Sibling retaliation? Inevitable. It was the little things, wasn't it? The joy of creating art that wasn't permanent. No mess, no paper, no cleanup. Just steam, your finger, and pure imagination. And hey, if you really wanted to level up, you'd pre-draw on the clean mirror before your shower, invisible ink style. Then, after the steam rolled in, bam, your hidden message magically appeared. Best trick ever. 10-year-old you felt like a wizard or a spy or both. So yeah, drawing on steamed up mirrors, one of those harmless little habits that made you feel way cooler than you actually were. And honestly, it still kinda slaps. Next time you're in a fogged up bathroom, I dare you, draw the smiley face. Trust me, feels just as satisfying as it did back then.